We're alive! Yay!
Wow.
We're alive!
Does it work?
Yeah.
Hello, everyone.
Until we see it.
Yeah.
we
It's
see it, it's
alive!
not
It
real.
lives! Praise the Omnissiah! Yay! Hi, everyone.
The first thing
How's
I
it-
saw
oh,
was Common Colonel.
wow. We've also got a
Wow.
donation from Dante.
I'm stuck watching an ad.
2500.
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
We're here. We did
We
it.
live. We
Andy,
lubricated the
Andy, you
machine
gotta
spirit
close the
adequately.
stream, bro.
Oh, it's come up. Yay.
We are alive.
Hello, everyone.
That's a weight off my mind.
Welcome
Hello, everyone.
To a tier list stream today. We got a special guest.
Andy, you gotta
Yes.
close the stream, bro. We heard everything we said 5 seconds ago.
What?
What?
It's echoing really bad. For
Is
oh,
it?
wait a minute. No, I have the stream open. Sorry, that's
you're
me.
hearing
That's me.
yourself.
I don't have the stream open.
I'm
What are you
trolling.
talking about?
I'm trolling.
Sabotaged. Take
Sorry.
two.
Yes, we have a wonderful guest, everyone. It's Sandman of Terra.
Yeah.
Hello, Ed.
Ed is here.
Thanks for joining us
Hello,
again.
guys.
Applause.
Thanks for having me. Apparently I
Apologies
broke
about last week.
everything last time just by
Yeah.
my presence. So very grateful to the Omnissiah not to do that again.
I like to
Appreciate
think
that.
of it as a god refusing to allow me to escape the Horus Heresy.
Yeah.
Colin was so looking forward not to having to read more about Space
We're
Marines.
this close to
Oh,
greatness.
man.
This close.
Yeah.
We did have another stream, another tier list at the end, but today is a special occasion because we're going to torture Colin and a little bit of Eli.
Yeah, I've only read
every
that.
single.
guys.
We're
Oh my
rating
gosh.
every single Horus Heresy book, possibly even Siege of Terror as well. There is a special category called Hail Boingob. Ed, do you know what Boingob is? I don't know if we mentioned that.
I don't know what that is. No.
Oh.
Colin, could you
Heresy.
please explain the glory if this gets you going?
He is the father of Squigs in Age of Sigmar, and he died when he tried to eat the sun.
He died
That's
for our
Boingob.
sins.
That's Boingob.
He got
Okay.
rotisserie chicken.
We're
Why are we
big-
not talking about that?
We're big fans.
Because
Okay.
honestly, the first time we heard that lore, we all wept openly
Yeah,
because it was so funny.
we were very happy
But-
to know about this.
This is a little bit
by
more
the way-
serious.
Colin, feast your eyes on this.
I see.
This is what you have to
I
read.
did
one day.
actually
That's less
bring-
books than I thought.
Bring
Look at all them
questions
JPEGs.
because I know that I can provide quite literally nothing else otherwise. And I can bring them, at the end or the beginning.
We should
Yeah,
ask
no.
Colin his opinion first.
You
just
know
so
what?
we get-
I should have said
unbiased.
that. That's
This is-
infinitely more clever than what I said. But I felt like I needed to bring literally anything to the table. So some general questions about the series for people who are me.
Fair
Very
enough.
good.
I think we'll probably get straight into it though. We'll start from the
Oh,
beginning.
and before we start as well, just chat in general. If any of us sound a bit quiet or a bit too loud, please let us know because there's a lot of us in the stream. So just let us know and
Yeah.
I'll tweak it as we go.
We also
Um,
got a little donation from Dante.
Yes, we
Bless you,
did. Yeah.
Dante. Thank you.
Bless you.
From a currency that I don't remember where it's
2,500.
from.
Clip.
Thank you very much.
2,500 clip. Thank you.
There's more currencies than sterling pound, and that's already messed with my brain.
And that offends Hal at a
all right,
level.
chill.
Anyway, Horus Rising. It's the first one.
S
I think
tier.
that's pretty
I
high,
love
surely.
Horus Rising.
It's a
I
great
was there
way
the
to start off
day
the series.
Horus slew the Emperor, bro. That's the best
Yeah.
opening to any book ever.
I was there the day Horus shat himself.
It's the
Okay.
best joke we've ever heard.
It's the best joke we've
Famous
ever
Colin
heard.
video.
Yeah, it starts off strong.
Just for people listening, a brief thing about Horus Rising is essentially just the straight up introduction of Horus Lupercal. Like loads of love characters like Garvia Loken. Unfortunately,
And Horus
Erebus is
talks
in
like
it.
this.
Come on.
Erebus, just like a brief summary, like the kind of like what happens in the book. So people listening being like, I have no idea why they rate that book so high. There's like an initial part where it's a great joke where Garvia Loken the day Horus threw the Emperor. Oh, sorry, Donkey Man USA is a
A
donation.
great elbow to the face for Lucius as well, for all you Lucius haters.
Yeah.
It wasn't fair. It wasn't a fair fight.
But also, I think one of my favorite things about Horus Rising is that it's your introduction to the heresy in terms of like, this is where we're going to get a bit more serious, guys. Okay, we've had enough jokey 40k for the last 10 years. This is serious. Anyway, so the planet's called Murder, and we're getting like these mecha arachnids, and you're like, okay, cool, super serious. That I like it.
It has got a real designation, but that's just what they call it.
It literally is Star Troopers, isn't it?
Yeah,
Starship
kind of
Troopers.
is. Kind of
I mean,
is.
that's
In the middle of
what
the
Warhammer
book.
is.
Yeah.
Oh,
No, but they literally like kind of go like way too close to it, and I wonder if Dan Abnett went, let's do it. Go on, do it."
Whatever.
Well, after
Send
what
it.
they
How
did to
did you read
Dune,
out,
like, they might as well just.
Oh, we got loads of donations. How did
Thank
you
you,
read
guys.
out Donkey Man's?
Oh, I didn't get to it. He says
should
Horus
I-
Rising was good, but it was a weird choice to start it with Loken saying how he was there the day Horus shat himself.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
back.
I don't want to
We
hear
also-
this anymore.
It's
We
not
also
true.
got-
All lies. Horus can't even fit into like the Portaloo, so it's fine.
It's like
Another
Master
donation
Chief.
by-
It's built in the armor.
Yeah.
Oh, it's his food. Practical, another donation, $5. Thank you, brother. He says, much
Thank you
love
very
from
much.
Virginia. Hope you all have a good day and evening. Keep up the great work. Thank you, brother.
Thank
Another
you.
one by RB20 guy. I'd say, I guess Ruby in a way. Soul Drinkers for the best loyalist chapter. They're not in the Horus Heresy.
They're so
unfortunately.
cool though. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
I've
they got,
only-
how the heck did they get 2 omnibuses? That's
'Cause they're-
crazy.
Awesome. I've
They are
only
awesome, but
only
it's
read
so
like 3
weird.
chapters of the first book because
First
I have
book's
to
fun.
get through the Necron stuff first. But they're really cool, and they're purple.
They are
Like-
very purple. It's just weird to see like a successor, like an obscure successor
Well,
chapter get
to be fair,
more than a short.
To be fair, in their defense, they are second founding chapter. They are the forgotten second
Yeah.
founding chapter of the Imperial Fists. If Black Templars have their own freaking army,
Yeah,
Soul Drinkers can get some
and
love.
they got a Spider-Man.
Yeah.
but more a literal Spider-Man.
I still
who's in the
like all the Illuminor Ceres plus Space Marine Chapter Master conversions that people made back in the day.
Black Templars get a whole army and release, and Yannari can't even get a plot moving.
Oh, kill Harry.
Neither can any of the
That's
Chaos
another
War
thing to
bands,
say.
to be fair.
Pain.
Black
Horus
Templars,
Rising
Remembrance Children. Oh my gosh.
does have a cool part where some of the Torgadon, who's one of the sons of Horus, who's a
Oh, yes.
very beloved character, and he's
Have
like,
you heard the one about the bear?
yeah, he's quite a jokester. He
I
basically
miss him.
he goes up straight onto the Emperor's children, sort of Eidolon, who's a cock, and he just tells him, "You are useless. I hate you. Your breath smells. Your mum," and just leaves it.
And
at
your
that.
mother smelt of elderberries.
So there's
Your
a
mother
cool
was
parts
having
in
your
there.
father.
A real good guy.
Yeah.
There's also
He
the
had a
events.
moustache.
What's the There's something people have maybe kind of heard of but don't know. It was like in this book. It's the Interrex, which is like, oh, this is like human society, but kind of cool. They integrate with aliens and stuff, and
Yeah.
they have bows. They just straight
Yeah.
up have bows, and they use
We're
bows to
playing
like.
too much Destiny.
And the all, like Abaddon and Loken, like all the other stars, go, that's a bit cringe, isn't it? But then they get hit by one of those, and then they go like, oh, okay, I see how it is.
Oh, I died.
I also want to
Yeah.
mention the first comment when after going live is it Colin about his bed comment.
Yeah.
Colin has in fact
It's
made
like-
his bed.
Yeah, but it was apparently made very poorly. Lol, that was a quick fix, says Krieg Guardsman.
We not talk
ongoing
about my
joke about
bed
this
for
bed.
one episode.
The bed's visible. This book is really enjoyable though. For anyone like who kind of gets into Warhammer, just and you don't really read books. Just this is like the best one to get started on. Great book.
Honestly, I put it so much higher up the rankings of where to start reading Warhammer 40k than I think most people. I think the most intimidating thing about it is the fact that it's part of a 64-book series, but
Yes.
Gaunt's Ghost and Caiaphas Cain are also not short. So it
Yeah.
comes and goes.
Yeah.
And it's where I started, and I now do
Yeah.
this. So I can't not recommend it as a first novel.
It
because
wasn't where I
objectively
started,
great.
but it wasn't far off.
Yeah, me too. I think I started with Fulgrim. I think that was my first book that I read. Because I
I
remember
did it in-
trying to read Fall
You
of
read the first three.
Damnos.
There's no like piss and shit in this one, so I think
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
I got to be honest. When I started getting into this series, and I read them all now, I say read, I listened to them. I basically waited for them to go on 2-for-1 and £3 sales on Audible. And I remember Prospero Burns was one of the first ones I listened to, but it was fine because it was kind of like a separate thing, and Descent of Angels. So I kind of went like Horus, Galaxy in Flames, Descent of Angels, Prospero. Like I did the first three, and then I ping-ponged around a bit until I got enough to go through.
I honestly, I have an opinion here, which is like, first there's a donation by
from
Contact Kinetic. He says, I was there the day Horus dropped that problematic tweet. Incoming backup with
thank you
60,
for the shekels.
6 twigglies. I don't know what
I'm pretty sure they're actually shekels. I looked it up. Like Israeli currency.
Do you want to read that out now, Eli?
My favorite moment from the Horus Heresy was when the Emperor turned to his least favorite son, Boingob, and told him, "You really are the Warhammer Age of Sigmar." And then he sent a horse to rotisserie chicken him. Man,
poor guy.
That was quite the sentence. I tell that sentence to a freaking 12th century child.
And tastes good.
I mean,
I don't think.
Surely there's a good tasting squig out there. There's like 1,000 different squigs.
It's the chicken squig. It tastes like.
There's not enough squig in 40k.
For real.
There's just not enough squig in 40k. The second book here is False Gods. This is the corruption of Horus, essentially. There's a whole lot of Erebus, unfortunately, in this one. This is one where we see they basically turn up. Well, very, very quick synopsis. The Lunar Wolves are now the Sons of Horus. Sons of Horus are a little bit like, we're a bit more aggressive than usual. Horus is a bit melancholic because he basically was like, I'm the War Master now. I'm going to be like the peaceful example for the Imperium. And his first few attempts, he cocked it up bad. Or other people helped cock it up. So now he's just basically gone, I'm having a stroppy sort of mode. I want to throw my toys.
I'm having a tantrum.
Horus gets betrayed by a man named Yugen Temba, who's like a mortal man who's now corrupted by Nurgle, and then Horus gets stabbed by the special blade, the Anathane blade. So it's a very quick overview. Horus gets corrupted by basically they show him what 40k is, and he goes like, "That's disgusting. Ew. I hate 40k." So much. And then he goes, but I have a complaint about this novel where he basically goes, I won't be manipulated by anyone. I'll make my own choice. I'm going to choose that guy's side. And essentially Horus emerges miraculously safe from his mortal wound. I think this book is A tier, simply for the fact that I think there's a few holes in it.
Yeah.
But there's some great scenes.
To be fair,
it is the first... Sorry.
Oh, you go ahead.
I was going to say, it's the first of something I'm going to bring up probably multiple times today, where the writers write a thing about Primarchs, and then they go, oh no, we can't have the Primarchs ever getting tricked, so we're going to have to change that afterwards. And this happens in one novel. So Horus, Erebus, sneaks in, and the way Erebus tries to trick Horus is he takes the form of Sejanus, who was one of the Mournival who previously died, and Horus loved very dearly. And
I think
Horus sees Erebus and then quickly sees through him, and he quickly sees through everything that's going on, but he still falls to chaos. And the reason this book doesn't work quite so well for me is I feel like they should have picked the way Horus was going to fall and stuck to it. Either he gets tricked or he's an egomaniacal maniac, and they don't really pick a lane, and so it doesn't quite work. I find he just kind of sees a bunch of statues and
there's the whole
all the loyalist Primarchs get statues in this vision, and he's like, why haven't I got a statue? And that's genuinely the part of the book his mind seems to turn, and you're like, this is just weird.
And there's the bit in the later books where it's explained there's a piece of him that's still noble and stuff, and he's in the warp fighting for his life, and actually he was possessed all this time, and say, what's going on with Horus's intentions? I'm not sure.
They want to experiment with too many ideas. There's a few cool scenes which Colin might enjoy as Imperial hater, which is when Horus gets wounded, all the Sons of Horus and members of Space Marine, they're they're the noble warriors who are just fighting a little dirty war on the side. It's not that bad. When they carry Horus's wounded body back to their ship, to the Apothecarian,
cutting through civilians, aren't they?
Yeah, they literally all the people start crying, going oh my god, it's Horus, and they go move, and they literally stampede. I think they described it as an actual mulching of people.
We've all been on the tube and had that thought.
On the trains. Oh man, no, and then they kind of are. It's when humans first realize oh, this is what it feels like to be on the other end of fighting Astartes, and they're a little bit more wary of them. And there is that cool. My favorite scene is when they do like carry his body down to like the temple on not his fan.
It's like that meme.
They're carrying his body on like a sort of funeral pyre thing, and all of like even the Astartes are like weeping, and then people start praying, and then people go like, "Oh no, people are praying. We're not supposed to pray at this time." You know what I mean? This is the anti-prayer ship. But it's quite well written, that part. Again, lots of cool things happen in the book, but it's just overall. Like again, like they feel like we had an end goal. We had to get the character to that end goal rather than just see what we can explore. Next one, Galaxy in Flames, Isstvan 3.
Could I just add one more note to False Gods real quick?
Yeah, go for it.
I know a lot of people like make the joke where he's throwing a tantrum, but it's like, I feel like being tricked into a little bit of genocide is a valid reason to be unhappy with your lot in life at that moment.
That is
fair. It might affect your credit score.
I don't
You're
blame
not
him for being a little bit upset.
We also got some mentions in chat about the poop knife, which is an OG Fabius Bile video. Lorecrimes meme.
I've given it a pin for Rarest Pepe for bringing it up. That's a deep cut. That's a Lorecrimes deep cut.
Yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, Galaxy in Flames. Isstvan makes me cry every day.
I miss you, Saul.
Does anyone else want to explain this one briefly?
It's one of the best Istvans, I
think. My favorite. I can hear Donald Trump voice like, of all the Istvans, it's the greatest or something. Andy, Andy likes Flight of Eisenstein. I think I'll save Andy for that. I could do a brief rundown on this one, which is basically Isstvan 3.
Yeah.
So characters that we've
Isstvan 3 Isstvan 3 part 1.
Yeah. We kind of follow like the point of view of like a lot of the characters established in the first two books, who are like they're minor characters who will then not make it further in the heresy. Characters like, you heard of like Saul Tarvitz, Colin?
Yeah. He was the leader of the Loyalists on Isstvan.
Yeah, this is.
I know the outline. Captain. If you ask me like a very basic Horus, I'm not ignorant. I know what happens.
No, just make sure.
If you ask me for anything resembling,
I was using it as a springboard.
Fair enough.
Who's this Horus guy?
Dude, if you ask me for anything resembling a scrap of dialogue, I'm up Shit's Creek without a paddle.
We have a donation from Damien P. Shout out to Damien Luck.
Thank you,
throwing
Damien.
that out there.
Thank you.
Finally catching a stream, and thanks for getting me through a double shift. Also, any book where Jagged Icon is S+.
We'll get to the guy.
Hope you're surviving your shift. Sounds like a long day.
We'll get to Jagged Icon. We'll get to a book where we go,
oh
yeah, Jagged Icon's in this.
It's
amazing. Boingob tier.
It's I do think for this particular book, I put it in A, just because I know that some other books I felt much stronger
above or below False Gods, do you reckon?
It's not one of those books I'm like, oh shit. And actually I would say, compared to the next novel, which is part 2 of Isstvan 3, I would say it's the worst of the two.
There's some cool scenes in it. They kind of start to show, like particularly in the Emperor's Children, some of them are starting to show corruption in terms of like Eidolon, who's got this voice box thing surgically put into his throat so he can scream at people aggressively loud.
That is
and
awesome.
Then Saul Tarvitz goes, "That's a little funky. Where's that from?" It's like, and he goes, "Don't mind your business. Get off my back." There's again, the dialogue on this one is not like I don't think back to this book and I go like, "Oh, there's like a really cool scene," but the overall tone of the book is done well because you feel like pretty much like, oh my god, like all my favorite characters are in danger.
And you mentioned Torgaden earlier, so I mean him dying, I mean that's the argument for D tier, isn't it? Really, I think worst decision.
It is really tough.
Not only do they kill Torgaden, but then, as we'll see, torture him for the next 20 years. In our world.
Tarek Torgaden is a Sons of Horrors character, and he's the only person who has a sense of humor as an Astartes. He's the only one who makes jokes, and he's so likable.
I think he's second company captain as well, so he's like quite high up in the ranks.
Yeah, he's a Mournival. He's tall, isn't he? He's really tall. And then it's really sad when he goes because it's like he gets killed by his best mate, little Horus.
It's him.
You're seeming a bit glum. I'm a lovely chap, but I do kill people. Ha ha ha! I'm Tarek. I have a mustache.
Big mustache.
It's him and Loken fighting Abaddon and Horus,
Little
right?
Horus. Yeah.
It was funny.
Yeah.
I read the book first, and then when I listened to the audiobook, and he does Andy, you do a fantastic voice there. Like that voice, I was like, oh, that's
Would
so
you like
perfect.
to hear my Horus
Oh,
Lupercal
God.
impression from the first book? This is how I sound when I'm the War Master of Chaos. Yeah. They have some interesting
let's go.
The worst
I
voice
talk
I
out of
think
my
is
nose.
actually Mephiston. I listened to Darkness in the Blood, I remember, and I think it was that one, where that Mephiston is very much like, I am Mephiston, the chief librarian of the Blood Angels. And
Sounds like Merlin in the
Kind of makes
70s
sense.
show.
exactly.
I love John Banks's, and again, when I asked Hal to do the voice for Mephiston on my video on my channel, I was like, I like the John Banks version, so like that's kind of what. And you were like, "Hello, I'm Mephiston.
I have
Well
escaped
done.
the curse.
That's the one. Very
He's
well done.
dark and
We love
creepy.
it.
Next book is The Flight of the Eisenstein.
Yes.
Which, as a name for a book,
Very
goes
cool.
hard.
Very cool.
Does anyone else want to explain this book quite quick? Because funny enough, I've only read this. This was like one of the first ones I read, and I can only like half remember it just because it was so long ago.
So this is the other half of Istvan 3.
Yeah.
So this is where we get the last stand of Sultavitz. They really like to tear us apart. I totally thought he was going to come back. He does not. He dies in this novel. It's very sad. And you also get this is where you get properly introduced to Nathaniel Garrow, who will almost certainly become one of your favorite characters. In fact, it's the first time you're introduced to Rogel Dawn, because as he makes it, when he escapes, he actually runs into Rogel Dawn, and Rogel Dawn learns for the very first time that.
And Garrow goes, "Hey Dawn, did you know that Horus is a traitor?" And he goes, "What did you say?" And he starts shaking him and smacking him in the face, and then. Mercedes Olaton is like, no. Look, I have implants in my brain. Look, here's him killing remembrancers. And I'm like, oh, that triggers me specifically. By the way,
when my brother commits atrocities, it gets me a little hot under the collar, if you know what I mean.
I would believe it, but without a shadow of a doubt. I would be like, absolutely. I totally believe it.
We've got a donation, by the way.
That's his character.
Is that, I can't read the full name, Dragon
Master
something. I can't read the second part of
Dragon Master Outcast, Thank you.
Outcast, there we go. For 5 New Zealanders. He said,
I will say as well, if you
25% of the Horus Heresy is good. The rest of it is filler, garbage, or John Grammaticus.
I love John.
I don't.
To be fair, we could have had like a filler tier. That would have been quite good, because there are a couple of things you're like, this is pure filler.
It's not too
I will
late.
say as well,
Let's just change D.
Lucius is one of those characters that people love to hate. And if you love to hate Lucius, then this is the book where you're like, oh, he's a total bastard. I could deal with the stuff in Fulgrim, but this is worse.
Yep. And it gives them some actual time in the sun as well, which is nice. They don't just have him getting dogged on. So
he's in a random novel later, and I don't know if you read that one, but I'll explain. Because he's no reason, he has no business being in that novel.
In the Istvan stuff, Lucius like 1v10s pretty much, and just like obliterates all the loyalists. So it was a nice moment.
What's funny at this point then, technically Trazen the Infinite is just around here like pokeballing people, but it's never
amusing
seen. Like he's technically there and he takes a few samples.
Also known as people.
I just love that. You must have been watching that for a while.
Have you guys seen Gravity Falls?
Yes.
No.
It's like Brendan Blandon, something like that, the time traveler guy. If you look in the background, you see him like picking stuff up and fixing anomalies and whatever. Yeah.
Although again, I loved the memes of the end and the death when people were like trying to get the third edition. There was that meme. It was like, finally, I have them all. Like, get rid of scalpers.
I don't like
you can just kill them.
Murder Skull.
The only book.
This is Born God tier.
The name.
This book is Born God tier. It's so good, dude. It's so good.
Do you want to explain what happens in this book?
Like make your case.
Who's it about?
I don't know.
Why is there one more book named that as well? What the hell? There's another book named.
It's the book Fulgrim. It's about the guy Fulgrim and the guy Fulgrim's Legion, the Emperor's Children, and also the Iron Hands are in it quite a lot. Iron Hands, most of Iron Hands lore is in the book about Emperor's Children, so that helps, I guess.
Yeah, and they're taking up the entirety of the book cover, like Fulgrim. Yeah, for real. Some Iron Hands.
A lot of the covers are really weird for these books, but anyways, it's man, it's been a while. But it starts off on the planet Lair, or is it Lairin? One of the two.
Yeah.
And the Emperor's children are fighting these cool snake-looking things. I kind of always imagined them similar to Slardar from Dota 2. Sorry for saying that game's name in our stream. But Slardar with like 6 arms type of thing. And the Lair are like these super adaptable, wacky creatures where there's castes of the species. And there's like warrior forms and there's like worker forms, and they kind of have a lot of genetic engineering going on. I might just say the whole book. I'm sorry. And
Xenos Law.
So
Did it.
yeah, basically, I gotta get it in there. So
that
basically,
when the Laren get more lore than the Eldar in the whole series.
Oh, okay.
Eldar's in this one. Eldar is in this
Eldar
one.
are in this one. It's tough, but anyways. So
The Eldar
Fulgrim,
is in this one.
Emperor's children are fighting really hard. They're fighting a little too hard at some points, but they eventually get to the end of it. They go into this temple where there's a lot of snakes having
They're
segs.
also hard fighting.
Yeah, and okay.
Sorry.
Also, the planet Lair is like this ocean planet, and there's these big spires on the islands. It's cool. It's like a coral type environment. So they go into this Segs dungeon with all the rest of the population doing it, and they find this wacky sword in the middle of all of it, and they think, man, that would be really cool if I took that sword. Nothing bad could ever happen from this. And so Fulgrim takes the sword as his own little thing. And I mean, we don't have to talk about the rest of the book, if we're being honest.
Isfahan 5 happened.
Okay. So Fulgrim takes the sword. The sword starts making him crazy because it's actually a Slaanesh, like Keeper of Secrets type of thing in the sword.
Oh no!
Him and Ferris do a bit of docking.
It's so stupid. Him and Ferris do some buddy stuff.
Jesus.
Oh my gosh! And the Legion itself is slowly getting kind of corrupted by Fabius Bile because he sees the lair and he starts modifying his brothers.
They've got signs of already genetically modifying themselves. And it's like, that's interesting.
Yeah. But mind you, before this, the Emperor's children were like the purest of the pure, freaking good boys. Legion, like, in my opinion, the best Legion the Imperium had. But Fabius Bile eventually convinces Fulgrim that, on the path to perfection, we should try new things.
It doesn't take much, does it? So Fulgrim actually threatens him, and he's like, how dare you try and improve upon the Emperor's design? He's like, no, because I can give people cool speakers, and he's like, oh, okay.
And Fabius
it's another
like hiding. He's also hiding. He has like space cancer, and he's just like, oh well, what have I got to lose?
I feel that this book is similar to what Ed was saying about Horus in False Gods, and how they take Fulgrim and they make him like 2 different people. They make him the most like dedicated, devout guy, and then on the other end, they just like have him fold to just about anything, just because a sword told him to, which is really annoying. But essentially, the Emperor's Children corruption was not their fault at all, and the authors just had to make it happen. So I think they did it in a poor way. But it's but like reading over the time, it makes a really good like tragedy book where they pursuit to perfection leads to corruption in the end, because nothing can really be.
Is this the one where Solomon Demeter dies?
I think so. If he gets if he's the guy who gets impaled on the statue,
he's
the one who's all like, "Oh, you took my honor from me. That's all I had." You're like, "Oh, Solomon."
There's also a lot of Remembrancer storylines in the book, because they're the Legion's all about art and music and stuff.
And what's her name is like, I made this mural out of my feces. And you're like, oh, great.
Yeah. So essentially, as they get corrupted. I don't quite remember how it happens, but the singer Remembrancer, who's like the best singer in the Imperium,
Becca
Kinska. She puts on this big. I skipped a lot of the book to hurry this up, I guess, but she makes this big performance.
I just reread.
I remember. It's because Becca and the Remembrancers go to the Lair Temple, and that corrupts them towards Slaanesh. So then, in that pursuit to perfection, as it get twisted like the rest of the Legion does, Becca puts on this big performance with like noise marine type instruments, and it summons demons, and everybody kills each other, and then that pretty much like seals the deal and completely corrupts the Legion.
Like, this is pretty cool. I'm going to be a noise marine.
So essentially, the Emperor's Children fell to chaos because Fulgrim picked up a sword and they watched a performance, and the author should be freaking whatever. It's fine. It's a really good book. Though I think those are dumb reasons to fall, but the book itself is very well written, and it makes for a really good tragedy book. Also, the Eldar are in the book because Eldrad comes to warn Fulgrim, and Fulgrim starts listening to him. Goes
really well.
There's 3 or 4 times in the book where Fulgrim could have ended the entire Horus Heresy, but but then the sword says, "Don't do that," and then he doesn't. So he's starting to listen to Eldrad and believe him, but then the sword said, "No, he's not. He's lying, bro." And so then he, kills the Howling Banshees. He beats up Avatar of Cain with his bare hands.
Avatar of Cain gets it.
Yeah, and he punches
it's
it
very quick as well, isn't it? It's like 7 seconds.
Yeah,
he just runs up it.
But then later in the book, just like a chapter later, he's in space about to meet with Horus, and he thinks back to what Eldrad was saying, and he believes him, and he gets the ship's crew to ready their weapons, and he's literally about to kill Horus and destroy his flagship. And then Eidolon, of course it's Eidolon, he brings him the sword. Your sword, my lord. And then he takes the sword and the sword says, "Don't blow up Horus. That would be a bad idea." And then he doesn't blow up Horus, and that's the end of that.
And Vespasian the whole time is going, I remember the good old days.
And then skipping forwards to Istvan, also before this, Fulgrim fist fights Ferris, and he wins. So that's freaking legit. Fulgrim bodies everyone.
Although it's because Ferris breaks Fireblade. He doesn't expect it to like blow up in his hands, and it knocks him out, like stuns him, and then he takes advantage.
Mm-hmm. And so after that, Istvan 5 happens. The Emperor's children are completely fricked. Like even the traitor Marines are like, "Who the heck are these guys? This is terrible." Fulgrim goes to fight Ferris. He beats him. And then he doesn't want to kill him, but then the sword pretty much moves his hand for him, and he cuts his head off, and then Fulgrim's just there, like, regretting everything, like, what have I done? I made the wrong choice. I should have never done this. And then he just gives up and gives into the demon's possession. And it's such a sad story. It's probably it's the saddest story that I've ever read in 40K. Personally, so
the longer that went on, the worse the rating. I feel like it went. Like S B.
It's kind of sad. I feel like Garrow's death was sadder to me. I was like, "Oh, Garrow."
Go ahead, Ed.
Oh, we're a while off that. I do get why you would really like this book. Like, there are some really good scenes. The orchestra scene where they summon the demonettes and the noise marines come out. That is really well written, and the death of Ferrus Manus is great, and even things like the painting at the end, that's such a great point, and we'll probably talk about this more later. Like the fact that I thought that was such a great narrative choice, and so I get why you would really like this novel. I totally do. I think that Istvan 5 is one of those things that could have been a bit better thought out, and I just don't get what Ferrus was doing.
Yeah, it is.
I don't get
the
why
book suffers from a major problem, which is they probably thought this would be like a 10-book series.
Yeah,
that's true.
And so they tried to do everything, but you can tell that they probably
force a lot. They force a lot.
Everything is done way too early.
But it's also
actually,
I
feel like
you have to do this.
I feel like this book really pushes the Fulgrim Horus friendship quite hard, actually, and like you realize how close they were because Fulgrim's Legion's suffering so much from their kind of like cancer that they basically suffer from, like actually meant that they had to kind of work under the Sons of Horus for a while, and so you get a real closeness there. But then Fulgrim Ferris, who was supposed to be the big bro ship, you're like, why are you friends? It's tough to see.
DJ Beast says, "Don't blow up Horus, you're so sexy, haha." That's what this is. This is very funny. But I think I think just the overall theme, like the theme and the philosophy of the book is because I think it tries to say a little bit more than the average, Horus Heresy Chaos is bad book. And like the Pursuit of Perfection can really destroy you and completely change who you are as a person and lead to a road of damnation very easily. And it's a very dangerous thing.
My only problem with the book is it just suffers from, you know what I mean? It's like the sum of all the parts is the problem I have with it, not the parts itself. The reason I put it in B is because again I'm looking at the rest of the tiers, and I'm setting quite a high bar. And I thought Fulgrim was a book as I wouldn't go back and reread Fulgrim if I was to reread a Horus Heresy book. Like I enjoy parts of it, like you said. But even to Colin here, I wouldn't say to Colin, go read that book. Like that's the one Horus Heresy book that should absolutely be read. Like I don't. It's not.
I think
especially when
the
Eisenstein does such a good job.
One of the things I really struggle.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say one of the things I really struggle with is something like actually I think Dan Abnett mentioned in the End of the Death epilogue, where he was like the book should stand on its own, and it's quite hard to do that with the Horus Heresy because of course with Fulgrim, we've already had all this development for a character like Lucius, so his scenes mean so much more in this book. But like, if you just take Fulgrim on its own, you're like, it's a huge time span. And so there's so much you go through. Like, even as you're going through it there, you're like, it's like, oh yeah, and then we get Istvan 5. It's like, oh my god, we still got Istvan 5 to go. And we've gone through so much up until that point. So it's as a novel, I don't know if I would say I'm no literary critic, but like I can just tell you what Warhammer I like. I just feel like it doesn't work as one book.
What tier do you want to put it in, Ed? Do you think is B, A?
I am a bit conscious, as I'm sure you all are, of putting too much in S and A. So I feel like it being harsh and putting it in B, but I feel like it's a high B.
We're getting close to an Alpha Legion book, and I already know what Colin's going to say.
Oh my gosh!
Can we get an Alpha Legion tier below filler?
Well, Ed,
should not be in B. This is a travesty.
You were saying about like a book should stand on its own as a self-contained story. Here's Descent of Angels.
Don't forget.
I mean, it does so well in that regard, doesn't it? Doesn't it do so well? So I don't think I'd ever put it in S tier. I don't think it's one of the best Dark Angels novels. But this was like one of the books that made me fall in love with them as a faction.
It's a really good.
I thought people hated this book
so much.
I didn't mind.
People do. People do typically. Sorry, that's what I'm caveating. People do typically dislike this novel. I think one of the big things is that, of course, most of it. All of it is not set during the Horus Heresy. It is the story of the lion on Caliban and defeating the great beasts. So it kind of pulls you out. And I don't want to be harsh enough to put it in filler, but arguably it kind of goes into that filler category because it's just you could if you wanted to tell a Horus Heresy story, you could have told a Horus Heresy story.
No, it can't go. It's not worthy of what anthology filler level.
What makes it worse, I think, is that Zahariel's storyline, it sets up Zahariel as a character, but Zahariel's storyline goes all over the place because he has no consistent writer. All of his writers after this are different. And so it kind of seems a little bit filler. Having said that, I did really enjoy the novel because Caliban is such a great world. Sorry.
Because the trouble with anything set in 30k is you can't put it outside of the Horus Heresy series. It's not like 40k where you can have like a little, we're just going to talk about these characters in 40k. Like everything has to be contained in this setting, and this is the only series where you can do 30k stuff other than a short story. For me, when I listened to this book, I really enjoyed how it set up the Dark Angels, and it was almost like you had this grand 5-book series, and it's like, here's everything going on, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, right, you guys are excited. Let's calm down a minute, have a bit of a palate cleanser. Let's talk about something different. And I really enjoyed the world building. I enjoyed that.
It's a fancy book, isn't it?
It's
actually
just
a fancy book.
And it was I actually really enjoyed this book. And it's the only time you get to talk.
Go ahead, Colin.
This is actually one of those handy questions I prepared. If like, I know what you're saying, Andy, and I get it, but genuine question: if you removed this book, just delete it, because most of it takes place before the Horus Heresy. Is the Horus Heresy actually harmed? That's something about the filler. Like, filler doesn't mean bad. A filler, the filler can be great. Some of the Dragon Ball Z filler is fantastic
as well, Colin. Yeah.
But it's still filler. It still doesn't.
So you'd have to change some stuff, but you'd be fine.
Yeah. I think the main thing is it sets up so much about the lion and how Caliban turns against him that if you didn't include this, everyone would be about like, what? That was a bit out of nowhere. So I get what you're saying,
Caliban's
but at the same time, I'm like...
Caliban, if you remove the Caliban plot line for the lion story throughout the Horus Heresy, it would be exactly the same, because he's nowhere near Caliban.
The really funny thing about that...
The end of the Horus Heresy, I should say.
Go ahead.
A really funny thing about the Dark Angel storyline for me is that they kind of forgot that they needed to develop Luther, I felt, right? And I know, I don't actually know that. Maybe it was deliberate, but I don't think it was. Because if you just read the Horus Heresy, to clarify, you don't actually know why Luther turned on the lion, because you don't get a lot of Luther POV throughout the Dark Angels novels. You know, he finds a very mysterious book that he shouldn't have found, and you know that he's clearly very enigmatic and mysterious and doesn't seem very trustworthy, but you don't actually see that. That plot development had to be written afterwards and put into Luther's own... it's a full book. It's a full book, but that covers... It's
the Knights of Lupus. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the Knights of Lupus.
It goes and it explains all what demons he worked with, etc., etc. But like, they don't actually tell that story in the Heresy, and that's what's really weird. And it does kind of feel like they forgot to tell it.
Do you know what I was going to say earlier as well? If I had like fun money, I would love to host a competition where we just redesign the Horus Heresy novel covers, because they actually if you looked at the Fulgrim or Descent of Angels here, you can't really tell what kind of story you're about to get. Descent of Angels, you don't really, the Lion's kind of not the main character in it. You follow a character called Zahariel, who, just for reference, is kind of basically Cypher later on, although that's a big question. But so Zahariel's will end up being Cypher, so that's a big thing. But in Descent of Angel, you're just following a guy hunting in like an old hunting gang in a forest.
And it starts off with them killing an emperor, but not the emperor. And it's like, you're not a real emperor, you're just like a pretender.
Yeah. I mean, I liked it just because
I really enjoyed that.
It's a refresher. It was like a palate cleanser. But I do.
That's why I don't want to put it in filler. But how about this? We put it at the top of filler. How about that?
I would arguably put it in the top of B, because again, I think the filler category is like that's its own thing. This is not.
Personally, I want to look like I'm objective when I evaluate the Dark Angels, so I'm fine to put it in filler.
Okay,
but he's going to find our address after this.
We're going to
because I'm with Colin. Putting it in filler doesn't actually mean for me that I didn't enjoy it. I really enjoyed that novel, and I would read that again on a lazy Sunday.
Filler can be great. It's just if you remove it, not that much is.
Yeah.
The Naruto Shippuden wants to speak to you.
Mecha Naruto is a treasure of humanity and should be treated as such.
Okay, but what's the level? Is it like One Piece filler?
All right, that's a whole new fucking level right there, man.
Okay. Sorry, Andy, go ahead.
I was going to say we've done 6.
We've got to get moving.
We've got to move. But I want to preface this one with I feel
the
like
Anthologies super
Colin's been a bit quiet for a while. So I'd like to offer an olive branch to Colin and be like, Colin, would you like to tell us what you think about this Alpha Legion book?
Colin, there's no way you've read this book.
No, there's not, but I don't need to read it. It's an Alpha Legion book. It's going to start and end with everything you just read is a lie, and therefore
it's better than that. It's
fucking trash.
Honestly,
this is actually a good book.
It's so good.
After what you did to Fulgrim, I need this book to go in Boing God tier. I can't do
this. This book is. I would consider putting it in Hail Boing God, just because it's the only book. It's the only book that doesn't treat you like an idiot reading Alpha Legion.
And John Germanicus is cool.
Sorry, how can we talk about putting Caliban in the filler category and not put the Cabal in the filler category?
They did it.
Look at this massive deal that neatly ties itself up. It's so
the Xenos.
There's still John Germanicus stays around though, so it's part of his story, which goes through the entire Horus Heresy.
There's an entire Xenos thing that
the Dark Angels stick around.
Okay, well, yeah. But this book is so good though, and it has Dorn and Flares in it.
This is the thing about Alpha Legion, right? Is that what is the point of this?
Thank you.
What is the point?
I'm fucking vindicated.
I like the whole when they meet the Cabal and they're like, oh, but we knew about you, but you knew about me, but we knew about you. I'm just like, okay, is this, how old are we? You know, it's just at a certain point you need to pick a lane. Someone has to be on top here, and it's just all kind of murky.
Well, I think if the other Alpha Legion books were better, then we probably wouldn't be arguing about
what other Alpha Legion books.
But the what are they called?
It's like 2.
I've forgotten their names now. The
like the short story ones, or the
the soldiers who get killed at the end.
I don't know.
Lucifer Blacks. They were great. Loved them. That epic, really epic scene. And
slight complaint here though, which is there's an entire Xenos faction called the Cabal who are like, we're going to manipulate humanity. That plotline was so bad that Eldrad Ulthran had to come out of the Shadow Realm to come and
You're not a real Xenos. Bang.
This is the original GW giving up on the Xenos plotline.
Oh my gosh, I know.
Actually,
I would say the killing of the Cabal is like one of my favorite parts of it. So that's
Horus Rising is better than this book. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I don't know.
Actually, Horus Rising I put top of S.
This is just so nice to me because it's the only good Alpha Legion book.
Do that. Andy,
I'm not having it. I'm not having it. Garrow's amazing.
Next one
and
is
him and his romance with Saul. Battle for the Abyss filler.
Self-defense, active self-defense.
Did you want to just play Star Wars?
By the idea of the 1,000 Sun Loyalists working together.
Can we bring D back below filler? Because is it
We're gonna
bad
put
or is it
above.
filler?
Okay,
Let me
yeah,
just,
fair. So yeah, this is, if you're not familiar with this book, this is the Word Bearers. We've got a Death Star, and it is called the Abyss. And the most generic team of Space Marines ever created is sent to go and take it out. Well,
What the
yeah.
hell's going on here?
Again, this is from the time where the Horus Heresy was a setting they had set up, and everything up until Fulgrim was to set up, I think, the Horus Heresy, and now it's just all throw in the old books. And so this is one of those like
And
random things they threw in at the start, and yeah, it's just basically 40k.
Piss.
Man, this thing is trying to hurt you, Andy.
I know. I don't know what it's doing. There we go.
There you go.
That's better. Yeah,
filler.
Battle of the Abyss is just such a forget. I can't remember what happens in this book.
There's
I just
some
know there's a
Thousand
Thousand
Suns in
Sun
it.
and an Ultramarine
And
and a
Ultramarines.
guy here. I'm like, that's
And
a
like
cool
the most Space
cover.
Wolfy Space Wolf, like.
It's like,
Yeah,
I physically can't remember, and I have a fairly good memory. Like, I can't remember what happens in this book.
Yeah,
No
What
plot
happens?
relevance really to the story. If you remove this book, you're fine. Like,
We should do an author tier list at some point. Just
Cool.
that'd be a hit. That might get
Maybe too mean. I feel bad because they're real human beings.
Mechanicum.
Oh, so good. This book is so
Fun.
good.
Quite an enjoyable
Fun.
I
book.
think it's pretty good. Yeah, I would say.
A is fine.
I would
A's
say a
fine.
solid A. Yeah.
I don't think we maybe.
I think as a Warhammer book, it's Boeing up tier, but I guess as Horus Heresy, I can settle for A tier.
And it's definitely one of those books I would recommend people read if you are a bouncing around the heresy type person, because it leads into a pretty big plot point that they kind of leave open at the end of the novel, which affects. It's what actually I will say. It's on the very first. This will be fine for 10,000 years. And you're like, oh, God, okay. So it's one of the first
Oddly
ones.
specific
and
number.
it's very good. But yeah, it actually, I think right at the start, I'm pretty sure it's this book, the Emperor actually comes to Mars, and you see that for the first time, which is just great.
Shout out to
So-
Neon LF Graves, who says, no, sorry, not Neon. Probably, good to see you, brother. Good to see you, Rand. Krieg Garsman, who says, Colin, wave if you need help. Filler, next one. It literally is.
Tales of Heresy.
It's an
It's just short
anthology.
stories, right? Yeah.
And look at this stocky Angron. What is this?
It's
a
so many
chunk.
weird.
He's a Primarch. They're big.
I know he's a Primarch, but look at him. He looks like
It's
a
like-
barrel.
Do you know what he looks like? He looks like that recent Custodian model, the one with the melter.
Oh yeah.
That looks a little bit squat, if you know what I mean. Like it's a bit.
He just looks short,
Dude, please,
and he's
Tom
not.
Custodies confirmed.
No.
He looks like if you got him in Photoshop and just went squish. I'm like, what
Yeah,
is
it's a
what is
bit-
this
it's a
gate
bit
going
rough.
on?
The
Yeah, I know what
artwork
you mean.
sometimes.
It does look like someone did it deliberately.
Horus Heresy
Next-
cover art is like pre-AI art. Because
Well,
the AI
I'm
art
sure
is
I've
now.
sent you the guys like the.
think they just
I've
called it
seen the.
art.
Yeah, but it looks like a weird version of the AI generated stuff.
Well, the thing
now,
is,
a
I've
lot of
sent
them.
you guys in the chat a few months ago, like the concepts where it's the. They've obviously made it like in a
3D modeling.
3D modeling program, and you can see like the globule versions of them in the poses, and it's like at the time of the release of these books, faces and stuff like that are kind of jank, and it looks a bit strange in modern perception, especially like what is going on with Age of Darkness
Because
here? What is this?
The Horus Heresy started in 2005, right?
Yeah,
Like
this is
that-
like
that-
Doom-free graphic engine.
Yeah, I say
you
that
know?
that's still when video games were just getting out of like talking being the
Battlefront
Yeah,
2
I get what
had
you mean.
just been
Phil.
released. Okay.
Good
It was a
days, good
golden
old days.
era.
It's 2005. Battlefront 2 is released.
It's 2005.
2024.
Wake up.
Oh,
Battlefront
man.
2 is just
Oh, man.
released.
Oh, we'd probably make Battlefront the 2.
Yvrain, the Yinkarn, bro, it's 2005. Eldar is still
It's
cool.
It's 2005. We don't need day one patches in any video game
Yeah,
ever.
oh
Those
my
were the good
gosh.
old days. I'm so
seriously.
old.
Next novel, though, D tier.
Fallen
This one's
Angels.
called Fallen Angels.
Why
This is
have
the
we got
most
another
I
Dark
hate
Angels
this book.
So
This
soon.
book is a waste of time. This is basically the Lion finds out
Holy
Horus has
shit.
betrayed. The Lion finds out Horus has betrayed the Imperium, and then he just goes to this planet to grab some siege equipment. They have
And
a
then Pyro
terrible,
was like,
crappy battle.
You know
part.
what? I'm just saying. Maybe I should take care. Like, just saying.
Just give it to
saying.
Curtis Robert. Yeah,
Aunt-
this novel, barely anything happens in
Must
it.
Yeah, I
It's
remember the end of
forgettable.
that one.
and the lion doesn't act like his usual self.
I always said you should have been War Master. I'm just saying. I think. If ever there's a vote, of no confidence in the guy who's literally betrayed the. When we kill Horus, I promise. I'll
Ed, please
I'll
tell me
be there for
you
you.
feel just as
No,
strongly.
I agree. This is like it's the first of the. There's a couple of Dark Angels books do this where you have like the Caliban side and the Lion side, because of course we wouldn't really say, but at the end of Descent of Angels, there's Luther kind of almost lets someone nearly almost blow up the Lion, and so the Lion sends Luther and a bunch of other Dark Angels back to Caliban, and so they are there to bring in more recruits. So you get that side of things, and a bit more Zahariel, which is kind of good, and you get the Knights of Lupus stuff coming back in. But exactly as you say. One thing that makes it worse, to your point there, Hal, is like with the siege engines, they do get brought up in the Siege of Terror, but again, they're not really relevant to anything. It's just like, oh, and they've got those siege engines the Lion gave him. It's like, cool, thanks for rubbing that
in. It's such a pointless, like this, it could be filler, but it's actually not like a filler book. It's not an anthology, but this one is so pointless, this book. I would have honestly deleted this book. If any, like, actually, no, I may reserve that. I forgot further in. Next one, though, 1,000 Suns. Now, I have a lot of bias to this one because I enjoy a lot of the world building in this, but I recognize this book is probably not
great
top tier. But I enjoyed this book.
This was one of the first ones I read, weirdly enough.
D tier because I hated Magnus's noodle hands.
Yeah.
It does look weird.
This is where you get to, if you want to find out if Magnus did anything wrong, this is your book, basically. And the answer, I would say, is yes. And Ketsky Balvin, I'm pretty certain agrees with that. But I would say that's about that. I wouldn't actively defend it. Magnus does do a couple of really stupid things in the novel, and that kind of irks me. But
yeah, it kind of reminds me of Fulgrim. In Fulgrim, the authors just make them do dumb things because they need to do dumb things, and so Magnus ruins everything, even though he's like the smartest guy there is. But
I enjoyed the 1,000 Suns, like the actual like Legion part of it, so much, just because it makes them like seem like a futuristic, well-rounded, like elite warrior sort of group.
They have cool psychic power moments too.
Yeah, but then it just again like. I don't watch it for the plot, if you know what I mean.
By the way, we got a donation from Deacon for $9.99. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Says huge fan of Lorecrimes. Oh, I got scrolled up. Huge fan of Lorecrimes, and listen to it for help getting through the work week. The lack of WHFB/AOS factions beginner to expert is a crime.
I agree.
You guys rock.
This man's my lifeline right now.
Yeah. We have another donation.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
You want to take it away, Eli?
Core 6F6 for $5. Thank you very much. Fellas, 2 questions. Is Gotrek and Felix Omnibus 5... There's 5 omnibuses?
Wow.
Is Gotrek and Felix Omnibus 5 necessary, and what should I read after Slayer?
They're all necessary, and after Slayer you should cry, and then read the
after Slayer you should start again.
I won't lie. I've read all the Gotrek AOS stuff.
Wow.
Not bad.
It's good.
It's okay. I mean, to be fair, there's some of them are like, I feel like it suffers from the... No, but it has a problem with a lot of the other Gotrek and Felix bit, which is like, some of them you get like, could skip this one, but I still enjoyed it. You know what I mean?
But if you remove it from the Horus Heresy, does it affect it?
To be fair, there's someone has made an artwork of it. It's like, I think it's Khan, and then he's like towering over Gotrek, who's raising an axe. I need to find that artwork.
Oh yeah, I've seen that artwork actually.
That was enjoyable.
Fellas, I do not want to build this rhino.
Just for people who... Oh, go ahead. Good.
I was going to say, on 1,000 Suns, the one thing that I always hate about this novel is I can't remember his name, but the Space Wolf who becomes friends with Araman. So this is the book where you start to hate the Space Wolves.
Ophir Weird Make. He makes the
weird boy, right? So this weird boy, he this is the part where you start to see how stupid the Space Wolves are, because they clearly use magic, warp magic, but they don't refer to it as warp magic because it is the energy of Fenris or something like that, right? It's their explanation. And to the degree that in this novel, Araman teaches him how to do some stuff, and he teaches Araman how to do some stuff, because they can do the same stuff. And then Weird Boy speaks at the Council of Nicaea and says like, well, they're doing magic. And it's like, so
I don't trust them. They're not using the power of Fenris, which is drawn from my homeworld, and it's fine.
That's right. it. Space Wolf haters
Yeah.
just don't get it.
Common Space Wolf, like L. Yeah, the Space Wolves in
This
this
book
one.
was a Space Wolf W last I checked, isn't it?
Yeah, no, but this
What
book is so
happened to
weird with them.
Prospero?
Thing is, I did a video on Weirdmake, and pretty much most of the comments are like, I was so happy when Ahriman tore his soul apart and let it be feasted on by the warp. And it's like, oh, yeah, he wasn't a good fellow, was he? And then you got like Tagutai Yasugai from the White Scars, like, well, actually, I think moderation is a good idea, and maybe we should like see this more as like a primal force. And then we're like, it's sorcery. It's like, no, you can't be like that, you naughty boy.
I can't let it go. I hate how the Space Wolves in the beginning of the novel, they arrive on that desert planet and all the Thousand Suns using magic to cool themselves down, being like, God, it's even hot from the Astartes. And then the Space Wolves are decked out in fur.
And they're just like
Heavy
dripping
and they're
with
like,
sweat, and they're like, this is how we roll. We're just
no, the
stinky,
Space Wolves don't
sweaty
even.
boys.
They say that they are still cool because apparently their gene seed
right.
is so good, like they just don't suffer from temperature changes. So even if they're in the freezing cold,
Well,
they're still
to be
fine.
fair,
Or hot.
to be fair, being a lawman, they are part of the trefoil, so they were made for a specific purpose. And if that is to be like, we can just kill anyone in any environment, then
To be fair, the enjoyable part is the burning of Prospero in this book. Quite tragic, a bit too fast. Like happens like this. This book feels like so long. Like my God.
Yeah, I
and
remember
then
that. I finished
the
this book
Edict of
when I was
Nicaea
camping.
happens in this as well, and Magnus again delivers his butchering of the allegory of the cave, which I can't forgiven him for. But I think CT is fine for this. Again, the book is like all right,
fine.
and there's enjoyable parts of it, but it's not. It can't compete with the things above it.
By the way, we got a donation from Tom Warren to $5 saying, I was super angry that Omnibus 5 of Omnibus 5 because it broke up the flow of the main books. But the stories in it are really good on their own.
He was
still
talking to
Gotrek,
Queen.
isn't it?
It is
Still
still
Gotrek.
Gotrek.
With Brian Blessed, who I've met, and he's a lovely man.
Next book, Nemesis.
I
This
actually
one,
really
I
enjoyed this
really
one.
like this
Filler.
one too.
I didn't.
Wow,
I think this is
the
actually
one
one of
with
those
the
ones that
cursor.
has like
Even
a cult
Colin
following.
knows is filler.
Some people are like,
I
this
think
is
it's
like
cool.
I know the
filler,
basics
basically.
of the book. It's one of those things where they go, let's assassinate Horus, and you know going in,
It is filler.
Horus
He's right.
isn't
But
going
it's
to die.
and at the end they
Some
go,
people have not
let's
even
not
heard of this
assassinate Horus.
Best of filler.
Yeah.
It's like, again,
This is an
it's like-
assassination attempt that goes so wrong, they decide at the end of the book that they will never try and assassinate him
Oh, and
again.
poor
Except for the
Luke
times when they
Sederay.
do try to assassinate Horus.
Poor Luke Sederay, who's literally wearing Horus's armor, is like, oh, I must be very important. I'm going to address the people.
Jeez.
Headshot. And you're like, oh, Luke, you poor man.
It's like the book can be great, but it's filler because again, if they're
It is
trying to,
filler,
if
but I'm
it's like
putting it at the
I'm
top
going to
filler.
kill X Primarch, you know it's not
And
going
there
to
was
happen.
like, it was just nice to have like an Assassinorum book where you got
Yeah.
to see the dynamic of like the first ever kill team working together and being like, oh, you got an Eversor and a Vindicare and blah blah blah, and you see how they like don't like each other because of like, oh, she changes shape and he's just a murderer and he's a camper. Yeah. There's
Yes,
always
it's
like
insane.
To be
dynamic.
fair, one thing in its defense, Constantine finger guns.
Yeah.
Constantine Valda at one point is in the alley and he just goes bow, bow, bow with finger guns, and then people
For
start
real?
popping. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I think-
he literally goes like, "I am the will of the emperor."
He points.
Observe, and he goes,
Oh,
and then
that's
someone's
what
head
you mean.
explodes,
Okay,
and he
yeah,
goes,
yeah.
point.
Because
and
an
the head
assassin
explodes,
is like
oh,
miles
that's
away,
so
so he's like, you die.
Yeah.
So that was the cool part. But
Weird.
again,
I
weird.
literally heard that, and I had this idea of like you could use that same setup with a Vindicare, and you could have like an ecclesiarchy zealot. Like I had this story idea of like imagine he was like confronting an orc warband, and he made a prime orc as like a primarch, and he was like, "You are destined to be like the leader of your people," and he tricks him into believing that he's like the son of the emperor, and he uses the Vindicare to like blow up the enemies of his like warband, and he makes him like believe he's strong, and therefore he becomes strong because that's how.
This sounds like some Octarius level of.
It's some fun fiction,
Bro, no, this surely
but-
cannot go wrong, bro. It'll be fine.
Yeah, and that's the fun part. And we got a
Next.
donation from Practical, by the way, from $5 saying, but there was that cool scene where a Thousand Sun uses magic to pilot a Warlord Titan. There is.
Next
Still.
book though is I think
Oh,
an S tier one.
S-
First
S- S-
Heretic.
Oh, so good.
There we go.
Really enjoyed this book. Argyle Tal showing philosophy, corruption of chaos. Isfahan 5 shenanigans, custodians. There's like I think this is one of the few books where and also a lot of Lorgar in it as well. There's, the full book flows.
Just change
so
the tone
well.
there.
Yeah, so like,
Hmm.
you're like, I love it. the book just flows really well, and every character. I didn't hate any character in this. Really enjoyable, and it's very interesting. I think if I was
I
to
hate
recommend
Lorca.
well, you're meant to. That's the whole point. Like you don't. But he's well rounded. He's like as well. You know how Gilliman is like really well written.
And is this the one where he
flaw.
also? Oh, this isn't the one where he crunks an Avatar of Cain, is it?
No, that's
No,
a different.
No, that's another one.
Yeah, it's a short story.
I would have put it
So
higher.
really
if
A
it was
wounded
mixed up.
Avatar of Cain, may I
Yeah.
specify?
Yeah.
So it's an actual matchup.
Mm.
Oh, I think you're
Fulgrim's
muted.
avatar was full power.
I said that doesn't make me feel happier that there's a burning
Because it actually,
Avatar of
because it
Cain.
just makes it like seem like a Primarch is this equivalent of a wounded Avatar of Cain. That should be the level.
The weakest of all
should be.
Primarchs is an equivalent. Yeah.
Enjoyable book though. Is
good.
anyone else okay with S tier?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
really
we're
good. It
not
also
good
has
at-
some custodials in it. And I like custodials for the same reason why I like Space Wolf W's, because people just seethe at them so much. And it's so funny to watch these people just lose their minds.
Speaking of Space Wolves, Eli,
Harlequin
Prospero,
W.
but this was on the.
I was a
may
little
I
kid when I read
interject?
this, and I liked it.
This
all I know.
was one of my first ones, and I really loved the perspective that most of it is from the perspective of a skald, which is like the equivalent of like the Space Wolves Remembrancers, where he's like they have an oratory tradition of we pass down the
Oh,
legends
yeah,
of the
right.
chapter through our scalds, and I really liked, similar to Descent of Angels, how this one had a real deep dive into how does this chapter work, and the whole meme of there are no wolves on Fenris. And it's like I enjoy losing myself in the cultures of fantasy realms and such,
Propaganda.
and this was a really fun read for me.
Do you want to hear a really
personally.
funny thing? So
What's that?
the writers were told to stop saying there are no wolves on Fenris. Apparently, so I can't remember
Yes.
which writer said this, but they posted about this online because they started saying there are no wolves on Fenris, and of course that became a massive meme, and everyone's thinking like, what does that mean? Does that mean that like? Does that mean that it starts in? He says it first, I think, in A Thousand Suns, and everyone's like, what does that mean? Does that mean like the wolves on Fenris are actually like 1,000 suns? Does it mean that like they're like not organic space wolves? What is it? And GW went, just to clarify, we sell a bunch of Space Wolf models riding wolves. You can't keep saying this.
But they also don't regard themselves as a chapter as Space Wolves. Like, no, we are the Rout, we are the Vilka Fenrika. That's just what the Imperium calls us.
Well,
And
it's not said in that respect. It's like Magnus the Red says it about the Space Wolves. So it's like, what's he getting at it? Like, and everyone's
I
trying to
think he's trying to imply like they weren't like either they used to be like human who like got
they
warped
wolf
or something.
I think was the
or
was the idea.
genetically mutated or genetically created back when Fenris was made. So it's like an ongoing like Magnus like magic is everywhere. You know. I actually haven't read this book. This is interesting though, so I don't know how to rate this one.
It's good. I think it's good. It's probably not as good as Mechanicus, but I feel like it's either better than Descent of Angels because there's actually some plot relevance to the Horus Heresy. Like I like how Björn is in it, and he's called Bear. He's just known as Bear, and he there's this like exchange where the main character, who is a Skald, who they basically go like, he's implanted by Magnus to be a spy, and he doesn't know that. And so he accompanies the Space Wolves as their Skald, and you get to learn a bit about their culture. And Bear, aka Bjorn, is like, I shot down your vessel. Whoops. And he then protects his Skald. And like then there's this bit at the end of the book where they basically like are like, hey, you are like too dangerous with Magnus in mind to keep free. So we're gonna like put you where the dreadnoughts live and put you in like suspended animation. And he like accepts this. And it's this whole thing of like, I really enjoy the dynamic between here is an alien culture. I don't mean alien like Xenos, but like here's a culture I have absolutely no concept of, and I'm trying to figure it out. And as the audience reading or listening to the book, you go, I'm in the Skald's I can't remember his name, the Skald's POV, and I don't get it. And as the book progresses, you start to understand how the Space Wolves work, and that's a really fun at least for me, that was a really fun experience. And I know people
It's not going in S tier.
it's not going in S tier, but I'm just saying I think it's really good.
Yeah,
and
it made me a
lot of
Space
people
Wolf fan as a little kid.
What's the?
I don't know. I
okay.
actually put Thousand Suns above. If I was doing it myself, I would put 1,000 Suns above Prospero Burns.
You know what? Maybe they're just the same book.
They
in
are the
some
same.
regards.
I mean, they're
It's
kind of the
kinda
same.
yeah.
It's kind of the same book.
I do like
How
the
about
stuff with Bjorn. I like great character, or Bear as he's known in that novel. But it's tough. I don't know. Nothing really grips me about that novel.
You don't feel that strongly about it, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, next
Yeah,
one. Next one is filler.
Yeah, I don't think I
Anthology.
read it. I don't remember.
This is, I would say, I was talking about this before, so hard to rank the anthologies because they're all over the place.
Yeah.
I think this is the one I like the most. I think this is the one that has like Dantiok in for the first time.
Yeah.
And it has like the Kurz versus Lion fight #1 with Coursewayne. So I think that's in this one. So I would rank this one as the highest of the anthologies, I think. I quite like Talon and Korax, I think are quite good. But I'm trying to think. Yeah, they're all over the place. In fact, which one? Oh, Tales of Heresy, I think, actually has Last Church, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think I want to say. So that's
think
also
so.
quite good. It's very hard. They're just anthologies.
Yeah. Don't even
Next.
deserve to be in the list.
The Outcast. I actually really enjoy this book.
I don't. Again, I feel not strongly about it whatsoever.
I do
may
feel
I
like
s-
not a lot of care was put into the novel.
Well, may I make my case?
Sure.
The reason I really enjoy this book is that you have a weird misfit band. If you got this guy from the Thousand Suns, you've got a Lunar Wolf, you've got 2 World Eaters, you've got this band of like we've been imprisoned by the actions of our legions. That these guys are all part of the
Outcasts,
Crusader
almost.
host. Yes, and they're all like, we are part of the Crusader host. We're the representatives of each legion. And what the Imperium did is they said, we're gonna heresy's happening. We're going to imprison you all. Severian, as part of this band, he becomes a proto Grey Knight, part of the Knights Errant. But the main conflict is like them versus like a Thunder Warrior who has a criminal band or like a cartel, and they're protecting this Navigator fella. And I really enjoy how unique and weird this book is because,
I agree.
like, there's an Emperor's Children guy, there's a Lunar Wolf, there's 2 Lunar Wolves, I think, actually. There's a couple of World Eaters, blah, blah, and a Thousand Sun. And it's just like a weird band of misfits trying to, like, vindicate their actions, knowing that they're going to be hunted down. Also, 2 World Eaters kill a custodian while they're in prison. It's like,
with their bare hands,
oh,
baby, with their bare hands.
Custodian
They're so
elves.
angry. And it's like, I really enjoy that this is just a weird book.
Yeah, I really
And
like
it stands out like a sore thumb. I'm like, I love that kind of book because in this setting, it would be so easy to be like, we're going to do another one about the Blood Angels and how they fight the good fight. I'm like, I want this weird stuff because that's where fun experimentation and ideas come from. And also Severian gets a spin-off where that Japanese swordsman tracks him down under orders from Malcador, and he's like, oh, he can be a Knights Errant because he's actually quite good at like not dying. And I just
That's
really
a
like
random
this
detail,
book.
isn't it? That guy in the novel.
Yeah,
It's
he's so
what-
like out of place.
There's just a Japanese swordsman who.
There's a
can cut
samurai
really
in 40k.
What?
Yeah, it's one of the assassin types,
Was
right?
FromSoft writing this book? What?
Well, the thing is, he's not like an assassin or a member. He's just like a guy who's like, I have a sword that I've
Dude
inherited
with
from
the
my
katana.
father.
There are like
I
ninja
have,
samurai.
I have an actual katana, and I try to kill
There's a
Severian.
school of the Inquisition that they have. It's like the minor heretic.
And the Inquisition
orders,
isn't a
whatever.
thing yet.
Yeah, but
It's
there's,
like
there's a
proto-
minor
the assassin
one
orm though.
they have where
Yeah.
people they practice cutting with making the perfect cut with a blade.
Get the,
There's an
the
entire
perfect draw.
Inquisitional order that does that, and this is the guy who probably would help found it. Or
To
something.
be fair, it does remind me there is actually like a competition where it's like if you sit in your knees and you have a katana, there's like an actual competition where it's like draw speed. Kind of like when you get guys who like compete, how quickly can you draw and fire 6 rounds of a revolver? The same thing exists in our world of like how quick can you draw a sword, cut, and like you gotta click, and then you're back in the sheath. And it's like
but Warhammer
it's just
fans
these
are
guys.
always at home.
While you were studying the
blade.
law, I was studying the blade fellas. You know.
This is
playing
ultimately
Sekiro.
ultimately
I think Andy
filler,
has
though,
to-
right? This book. They like
Andy, you have to rate this one because I'm
It
not.
can be it can be good and filler. Filler
Yeah,
is not
yeah, but
inherently
yeah, 'cause
bad.
it is-
It's
it
just-
is
It's
a
like
filler book,
massively
right?
filler.
Yeah.
But
I was,
I think
That's
but
what-
I will
yeah.
say,
there.
if someone
the
likes
only
it
thing
on the
is
basis of it
Severian
having
goes
a
on to
Thunder
be
Warrior,
important.
can I just
Like-
say though, okay, the problem with this novel is that like there's a big plot hole in this novel. It's huge, which is that they get the order
Yeah.
of Magnus contacting the Emperor wrong, And they try to retcon it later on. I think there's I can't remember which novel. Malkador says, "Oh, actually, it took a while for the signal to reach." But I'm like, you could have made that clear in the novel. It just feels like they forgot the order.
Also, they don't tie
unfolded.
up the Thunder Warrior dying. What's his name? I can't remember his name. But he's like, I'm a crime boss, but I was a Thunder Warrior. And at the end of the book, he's like, I'll be back one day. And he never comes back.
They fight some scary demon thing at the end, don't they? Right? Some Dark Angel, Emperor demon thing. I'm pretty sure
most
I'm
of them
99% sure that happens.
There's a plot hole in Fulgrim, I just remember. It's the one where Fulgrim mentions, World Eaters, Angron, Mortarion, and Lorgar are ready to strike at the Emperor. He's like, he shouldn't know that yet.
Well,
it's a random mistake.
I have a question. If the fact that Severian, who's the Lunar Wolf in this band, survives to go on to be important in the series, does that mean it can't be filler?
No, it's kind of filler.
I'll put it
People
from
Battle for the Abyss survive.
I guess it's a good question, but I think I have the same thing with like Descent of Angels, where I guess technically it introduces like Zahariel, but like you could have just put that.
Yeah, but like in this one, it's like
Severian
it's quite an important. He becomes like one of the first Grey Knights. Like,
you could put it in C tier, I think, just in terms of like it has that much impact.
And honestly, I just think like this book is so unique. I just love.
I do feel like it gets more hate than it deserves.
I don't get it. It's like people cook. Let people cook.
What's the next one, Andy?
The next one. Ooh, let me just scroll down. Is Raven Guard. Deliverance Lost.
If Corvus or Vulkan are on the covers, can we just put it in D and move on?
Yeah.
Okay. This is a cool book.
I didn't enjoy it that much.
I liked it. All right, they use plot convenience.
Cool parts. They use.
Is this the one where the Alpha Legion invade the Raven Spire?
They use plot convenience to make it so that the Raven Guard don't get destroyed. But
that's some of the better Alpha Legionnaire tactics, and where they genuinely do stuff.
Yeah, it was cool.
Like, I actually quite like that. And the psychic stuff they do, and the changing of their faces.
Yeah, it's cool.
That kind of thing.
Yeah,
the relationship between Corvus and the Emperor is actually quite nice, quite good. Like,
I'm not talking into a higher tier though.
The entire.
Sorry, I'm trying to give it some stuff. Yeah.
The entire Raven Guard Legion hangs on the thread that the author decided for the Alpha Legionaries to not kill a guy and let him crawl out the door right in front of them.
Yeah.
Which is so, like, every time the Alpha Legion takes an L, it's from, like, the worst writing possible. The worst, like, stupid, they were so arrogant and prideful that they let this guy, like, away. Yeah. Like, what the heck? It's just so stupid.
We wanted to prove we could do this.
Like, it's so dumb.
The way I see, like, whenever I do a Raven Guard video, they always have like an Essex or a Cockney accent, because I'm like, these guys are like, we worked in the mines, mate. We worked in the literal salt mines. We don't dick around.
I tried to do no fielding. This book was like, the IT crowd. That's what I tried to do.
The mighty boosh.
Goth to boss, That's basically when we did this stream the other day, and I was like, we found a goth baby. Yeah.
I only have one defense for this book, which is the Korax returns to Terra, and the Emperor says, you can have the gene seed reserves, but they're locked in that special maze, which is like all booby trap.
And only you are best.
And he has to direct all of the Legion, being like, left, turn, 3 paces north, wait 2 minutes.
He literally does that bit in Ocarina of Time when you get to the Lost Woods, where you have to go like left, right, up, left, right, and it's like, he just had the cheat code installed.
It's a one cool scene, but again, this book is. To be fair, those are the bit that they hide from Isfahan. They're like all like holding their breaths in that shit, being like, "Don't kill me." Yeah. But then the book is like forgettable. I
think it was cool. This book basically made the Alpha Legion the strongest Legion in the setting, and they really didn't go anywhere with it.
Here we go, Colin.
It's just classic. It's classic Alpha Legion. They gave them unlimited Space Marines, but
would you like to explain why they are now the most? What do you mean for people who don't know?
From what I remember, the Emperor had given Korax basically like some kind of to make like kind of proto, kind of like Primaris Marines, but also just like mass produce Space Marines.
Yeah.
To rebuild his Legion because he was destroyed. Yeah. And so then the Alpha Legion come in and steal it. And the Alpha Legion almost destroy the entire Raven Guard Legion. But like I said, a guy crawls out the door right in front of their eyes, and they don't do anything about it. And that is why the Raven Guard is still here today. Yeah, it's the Apothecary.
Vicente 6.
I remember listening to the book and being like, kill the guy, and then they just don't. And it's like, what the heck?
And then his like mutated raptor like sons are like, Daddy,
I
why
mean,
are
they
you
also created the
bleeding?"
first. They also created the first Chaos Raptors, didn't they?
Yeah, and then he's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, my daddy is dead. I'm gonna go
Yeah,
kill
because
some
they
Alpha Legion."
corrupted a bunch of the Raven Guard gene seed, but they almost
they-
did all of it, but then they didn't because the author needed to make sure the Raven Guard were still
They
around in
had
40K.
like a special gimmick from the Dark Mechanicus where they were like, "Hey, steal the Magna Mater and infect what they have, just so for like a bit of fun we can see what happens to them." And then they're all like being like, "Dad, why have I got seven hands and 5 arms?" Like,
So
it's
yeah,
fine.
basically it does. I guess to be fair, it does kind of make more sense out of how the Alpha Legion treats their Space Marines. It's just like completely expendable because they can just mass produce them. But they really don't.
Voice, by the way,
I feel like they don't touch
how many
on it.
books we got left.
Yeah.
It's because we haven't
No,
done any
this is-
salamanders as well.
Yeah.
We'll just go
Yeah.
through those
This is
quick.
an important. I will say this one's an important one.
It's
So
Point
if
God
I
tier.
put this in C for now, I'm gonna go for a we. No fear. Discuss.
Boing God.
I would
don't
go
know if I read
Boing
it or
Zone,
not.
whatever.
It's the title.
Boing God.
This is one of my favorite, whatever you called it. Your
Punching in
Hail
space.
Boing God.
Boing Gob.
This is one of my favorite books of
Justify
the Heresy.
this.
I think
I
it's
just-
so good. I think it's okay. So in terms of like how a novel is written, it's so well told. So there's like a time scale as you go down it. I think it makes it like made the Ultramarines what they are today. Up until this, the Ultramarines are like the bland Space Marine that like the poster boys no one really likes. And then Dan Abnett gave them so much personality in this novel. The word bearers are like properly evil bastards, which is like the best way to write them from my point of view. And there's no filler in it. Like literally, the Ruin Storm is created in this novel. It's outside of it. Yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry, I didn't actually say this. This is the trailer card. It's really good, and you get like the perspectives that Dan Abnett does. That's one thing he does really well is he tells his stories from multiple perspectives. So you get like word bearers and Ultramarines who were like really close friends and how it affected them, all the way up to like Guilliman and Lorgar, and then a bunch of stuff in between. And you get like badass moments, like the cover art there is Guilliman actually in space.
I was about to say, how do you no helmet? This is the famous quote. No helmet.
This is one of the books that personally I enjoyed the most from the Heresy, I think.
I did like this one, but again, I feel like the only reason it didn't hit me as hard as this one is because I think I like the 40k Ultramarine stuff, but I much more prefer like in this bit like the word bearer aspect of it. Like I genuinely like, not saying I'm evil, but the flawed characters are always much more interesting. And I think particularly with Guilliman, I prefer more of the later stuff where he's like actually like, oh, I'm having to like, you know, there's like like reconciling the actual like, oh, the heresy has like ruined us in this many ways. He's just angry, a bit too angry. You know, he's just angry in this one though. Which to be fair, I was reading I was just finishing up like the Dark Imperium like Godblight Plague War stuff. It's the second book where he just like at the end of that book he just literally yells so loud, like all the people go like, wow, I didn't know Guilliman's vein could throb like on his neck that badly. So horrible.
He can throb.
Next one, Andy. What's the
we got a word like that.
Oh, sorry, I don't want to overrule you guys. If you don't want to put it in your
we'll leave it. We'll leave it. Primarch's Anthology as well.
Boing Gob.
No, just leave it there. Fear to Tread. I actually haven't read Fear to Tread.
I haven't read it. Do you have to read 20 books to get to the first Blood Angels mentioned?
They were in the first book as well, to be fair. So they were like, we'll give them a little bit, so we'll wait 20 books.
That's the first third of the Horus Heresy. There's 40 more books.
This is pretty good. So Horus has sent the Blood Angels like far away. Basically, the Horus recognized the Blood Angels, the Dark Angels, and the Ultramarines as like the big problems. So he was like, let's send them far away so they won't be involved to like Istvan, because they just have very large legions, and Sanguinius is a badass. And this is where Sanguinius finds out about the heresy. It's one of my favorite scenes in the heresy. Erebus gets literally flayed at the end by Horus, which is fantastic. The first incidents of Sanguinius and Carbanda, there's a part where Sanguinius gets like knocked out and he has to be woken up. And Calbanda's like, how are you alive? And
two things.
He says, my sons found me, and that line goes so hard. I did not do it justice, but yeah, great. I don't know if I'd put it like S tier or anything.
A or B?
Better than Descent of Angels, surely.
Yeah, better than Descent of Angels. Now I'm looking at it, I feel like Descent of Angels is too high, but like, yeah, definitely better than Descent of Angels.
That better?
Yeah, I think that's better. I would say Fulgrim above the Fear to Tread, but it's a tough one.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I will say that too. I really enjoy Meros from the Dark Angel stuff, and also a fun fact: there's an Astartes called Eli Janus, who sacrifices himself during Cygnus Prime, and he's a captain, and he's like, "Oh, all our buddies are going mental." And they fight demons, and he
Andy's
dies.
showing off how he's read every single Horus
Yeah,
Heresy.
seriously.
Yeah, I've read a lot. Well, I've listened to a lot. Shadows of Treachery.
This is another anthology, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's actually got some good ones in it, but again, I think you got to put it in the anthology because we've got to get a move on. Because
that's
Angel Incarnate, Angels Exterminants, Angels
Exterminatus. Really cool book.
Exterminatus. Good fun.
It's cool.
I think it's also the same vibe of Fulgrim. I wouldn't reread this book, but I didn't it was cool. Some good moments, some Shattered Legions.
I think Beta is good
stuff
for that.
Yeah, I think just leave it there, Andy. It's fine.
It's good. I guess as well, if you're like brand new to 40k, this is like your this is your first proper ascension to demonhoods, which is like very exciting.
Eldar lore. There's Eldar lore in this one.
I like as well how it's not just like it's loyalists versus traitors. It's loyalists versus it's shattered loyalists versus traitors, because the traitors aren't like happy with working together. It's like the most stern, no nonsense legion with we like to inject several substances into our faces. Like,
I can only mention one scene, which is when Fulgrim appears before Perturabo, and they have like a whole how they have carnival in Brazil. They have a carnival of there's people like tied to chains crawling, and then Fulgrim's wearing a dress.
Fulgrim gets shot in the head in this book, right?
Yeah, Nicona shoots him in the face,
Perturabo carries him off.
And then
you will fall in love with Sharakin from this novel.
Yes.
And Sabik is like, nice shot. Everyone's like Nicona. I'm like, Sabik, he's my boy.
And Lucius the Eternal dies.
Yeah, this is
and
a good one
is
for
made. So like it's a lot of
it's a good one for Lucius haters.
Yeah, and there is that legendary line about paraphrasing. Fulgrim's like, Perty, I'm actually way better than you and superior. And then Perty's like, yet I'm the one holding the hammer. Smack. Yeah. Perty shows off his pedigree as a no-nonsense Primarch. Betrayer.
Well, Perturabos get killed.
Is this the one where Angron catches a Titan foot?
Betrayer put Betrayer right next to First Heretic, because they are like a sort of one follows on to the other.
Honestly,
I think I've read it, but I really want to. It also has probably the coolest.
It's so good, Eli. What are you doing?
It's you
love Lorgar.
Enjoy the book. Angron, basically at the end. Oh, sorry. It's not really spoilers, but Angron. This is his ascension to demonhood. Quite enjoyable. Again, the end of the Argotal sort of storyline, really enjoyable. But I honestly would
so
say
much
go read
that goes
it.
on in this one.
Honestly,
I want to put it here, just because. Hear me out. You've got Angron's ascension. You've got Guilliman fighting two traitor Primarchs. You've got the whole the thing with like Argotal's betrayal by Erebus. Like, there's so many like really biting moments in the narrative.
Erebus gets beaten up again. Crazy.
He does, but there's nice conclusions to arcs. There's nice fun stuff that goes on, and also there's a lot of like we were saying, the bit where Angron stops a Titan from flattening Lorgar, and then there's the bit where Guilliman's fighting Lorgar and Angron, and he beats Lorgar, and then Angron stops him from being killed, and then as a repayment, Lorgar's like humana, and then he like ascends Angron with the blood of Nuceria, the world he was made a slave on, to become a demon. Like, there's so and the betrayal of the psychos of the World Eaters, trying to like go, no, this is a bad, and trying to stop Lorgar from turning him. There's so many good moments in this book.
I'm happy to leave it there if you can put Horus Rising next to it. Then I think that would deserve it.
No,
that's fair.
No,
I get love and betrayal. You do probably feel for Angron as well. Like, there's a bit on the way to New Syria, I think it is, where like Angron finally starts to like kind of connect with his sons, like a little bit.
He starts to hang out with them.
And
hang out with them.
They actually,
and then
like,
of
the whole
course
book.
Erebus has him ascend to demonhood, and sorry, not Erebus, Lorgar. And there's like it's one of those things that like it's wonderful 40k that you can read it both ways in terms of how you view Lorgar in this novel, because he does basically save Angron's life, because Angron is essentially dying in this novel from the butcher's nails. And
the whole premise is that he's trying to save his life. And also I like the whole the characteristic of it's literally the two runts of the Emperor's Son's litter. It's like the two most disrespected and unlikable Primarchs as far as their these are the two that no one really it's they're my favorites within the band of brothers, shall we say. They're it's the weak one and the mental one, and they band, and near the end there's a mutual at the beginning of the story they're I don't like you, you don't like me, and by the end there's a mutual oh, you ain't so bad after all. By the way, Angron, check this out. And then Angron's and then he becomes a demon Primarch, and it's
I'm
a
happy
fun,
to have
it's a fun story.
There. What's the
Mark of
filler?
Calf.
It's another filler. Anthology.
It's okay. It's quite enjoyable, I'd say, as anthology.
It's
higher than Shadows of Treachery, higher than
I'm
Primarchs, lower than Age of Darkness. That's it. Okay, fine.
Vulkan lives. He's instant D tier. Oh.
D.
It's the best of the Nick Kine ones, in my opinion. I enjoyed this one.
Can the salamanders go in? Can the salamanders go in filler too?
Should we just do that now? Hold on, let's go through this. Where are the other salamanders?
Just grab all the Vulkan ones and
Eldred.
We also put
Deathfire and Old Earth in my mind are merged.
Can you put Damnation of Pythos in there?
Well,
that's the bottom of the bottom of the bottom.
That's the worst Horus Heresy book.
It's terrible.
I thought we'd have.
I can't remember.
Man, cutting out 4 books in one spell sweep and see all that is.
It's really crazy. They're all by the same author, I think. So.
Poor Nick Kine.
Look at that. Nick.
Yeah.
And I will say, I've listened to his Knights of Macragge recently, and I was it's fine, but it just didn't grip me. I was there's just never I know someone earlier was Graham McNeil is overrated. I like Graham. My favorite author is James Swallow, but it's there's never a book where I'm he got me with that one. It's always it was fine at best.
Just saying, Chris here as well. Chris wrote about it, 100%. Should we just put the anthologies in the filler, as we?
Yeah.
Right, what have we got left? So,
Legacies of Betrayal.
Can I just say, because I thought of this earlier, right? And how you were talking about those covers, and you were oh, those cover arts are a bit misleading. The next book, Unremembered Empire, is the most. Sanguinius is barely in this novel. It is pure clickbait from Dan Abnett, he probably did it. But
A War Without End is another filler.
White Scar on the front cover goes at the top, and also I really enjoyed the stories about Targutai and about his origin, so I'm going to put that at the top of D.
Eye of Terror is another filler.
Yeah.
They all have probably one good one that I'm I did like.
The thing is, War Without End has some good bangers. That's good. Korax, that's another anthology.
Korax I quite like. Talon I did quite like.
Silent War's really good.
Top middle.
Where's Silent War? I can't see
top middle.
Oh yeah, you're top middle. I'm I can't see top middle.
Shattered Legions is technically an anthology.
Burden of Loyalty is an anthology, isn't it?
Yeah. Don't worry, not much longer, Colin.
Heralds of the Siege.
Heralds of the Siege is. I like how it focuses on the champions of chaos, so I'm going to put it higher because there's a bit of Typhus, there's a bit of blah blah blah.
Where do we put?
Slaves of Darkness is also an anthology.
No, it's not. That one's the reunion.
But Garrow is exceptional, and so I'm going to put him in C tier.
Shattered Legions is technically an anthology, although that one is enjoyable.
And Talon, I actually quite like Talon. Talon's pretty fun.
Talon is respected.
Going up tier, Talon. Iron Warriors get fucking wrecked because
10 million.
They forget that Space Marine armor doesn't mean anything if you're in a tank.
10 million tanks.
I think that's the rest of them, and they're fine.
Cool.
Unremembered
Empire. Fun stuff. I
feel I'm the only person who rates this one quite high. I would put this in near Fulgrim.
Of it.
Yeah, I was thinking the same.
But
it's not the best because weirdly it covers so much. But the Lion Gilliman part at the start, the first half of the book is a bit of a. It's all happens towards the end. It all happens towards the end.
Conrad.
But weirdly, this book is 5 Primarchs. It is Gilliman, Sanguinius, Lion, Vulkan, and Kurz, and they all get. It's all pretty important stuff for them, even Sanguinius.
But it also hurts my heart because technically, in some regard, it's filler because it's they needed to occupy these Primarchs whilst they're not heading
But it is
towards Terra.
important. It is important.
Vulkan gets cured, kind of. Yeah.
Or dead.
I appreciate the
Eli,
like.
Go,
I was going to say,
Colin.
were you trying? Oh, sorry.
We have
I
our
was just sort of-
donation, is all I was
Yes.
trying to say. It's just from
Eldrad's
Donkey
in this.
Man USA.
Colin.
Oh yeah.
And it says, the Unremembered Empire, otherwise known as Conraz Kurz's excellent adventure. This sounds like a fun
Yeah.
book to me. Thank you for the
It is.
$5.
I
It's
like
like,
that.
you'll never guess, guys, but I've got a bunch of booby traps and I'm going to set them off and run away. It's like, good idea,
I've turned
Conrad. You haven't got
McCrog
five.
into Home Alone with gore.
Yeah.
But I
I
appreciate.
just like, yeah. Go, sorry. Go ahead.
So I from the conceptual level, I appreciate that Warhammer, even 40K is 50 different history references stacked on top of each other in a trench coat. I appreciate this is the Byzantine Empire's time to shine. It's Guilliman forming the successor to the Imperium around the most successful portions of it. It's a nice little Eastern Roman Empire in space.
I think.
And is this the one
really
where it's
cool,
the Sorry, I was just a small thing. Is this the one where it's Lion says, "Rabute, if you pest me anymore, I will punch you in your. I will theoretically punch you in your practical face." Is that where this is from? That's a great line. I'm going to put it above Fulgrim for that.
I will say the Dantioch Pollock scene against Kurz is so good.
Yeah,
Great scene.
He like shouts out. He's like shouting out from another like device. You go like, dodge left, turn right, because he can see the shadow. Well, no, he can sense the evil intent of Kurz. So he can knows when he's about to strike, and he says to like Dantioch, dodge left,
and then
move.
Vulkan. There's a bit where Kurz goes for Gilliman's mother in the his McCrag mother,
Rasha.
and then Vulkan just like
Rasha.
out of nowhere just takes him out. It's so
and
good.
I know we all tend to shit on the Space Wolves, but also Fafnir Bloodbrother and his men defending Gillimum and being like, oh, we're not going to let this crazy guy, and like most of them die apart from Fafnir, and he gets injured. And he's like, we're here to like censure Gilliman, and that's one of the things. Like people always shit on the Space Wolves, but it's like, look, when they're good, they're really good, and they were like, we're gonna lay down our lives to protect Gillimum, and we're not letting this crazy guy get to you. And then Vulkan comes as like, it's like John Cena, like, I'm going to kill you, Tarasha, and then Vulkan goes, are you sure about that? And then he like wrecks his stuff, and
he steals Gilliman's like ceremonial armor, and then just immediately like what's the phrase? He like spear tackles Kurz out of a window, and they start falling down and smacking each other.
And Kurz is just like, why won't you die? It's so good.
The bit where he's just one last bit. He stabs like Vulkan like with his two lightning claw, and he's like, I've got him. And then Vulkan just goes and just breathes in awake, like, oh god damn it.
One bit about this book that I did like is always so like weird to me is the bit right at the start with the Alpha Legion and their attempt to assassinate Gilliman. So these 10 Alpha Legionnaires just put on Ultramarines armor, including Theo. Theo's like an Ultramarine that Gilliman gets along with very, very well. They supposedly just make it past all of these Ultramarine securities without removing their helmets or doing any like checks to find out that they're Alpha Legionnaires. They get into a room with Gilliman whilst Gilliman's unarmored. It's basically the Captain America scene in the elevator, and interestingly, it came out a year before the Captain America movie.
And he gets like bolter shot, and he's like shrugs it off, like, "No, it's not a problem. Don't worry about it."
But the Fafnir is so good. Fafnir is so funny. There's a bit I think towards the start when Gilliman's like healing, and Fafnir is like, "Yeah, we're here basically to check if you've become a traitor. I'm going to kill you if you're a traitor.
Sure you're not going to be a traitor."
And Gilliman goes, Gilliman basically is like, "Well, I mean, not to be
think
rude,
you could?
Can you guys kill me?" And Fafnir goes like, "Probably not." What do you think?
And then straight afterwards, the lion appears, and they're like, "Hey, we want an honor duel." And then the lion goes, "All right, I'll fight you." And Fafnir's like, "No, I'm not a Primarch." He's like, "No, that's my terms." And he actually fights Lion, and Lion instantly like swats him, and even like he tries to cut off like Lion's head, and Gilliman himself is like, "Wow, I didn't see that coming." And even though the Lion easily beats up Fafnir, it's a thing of honor, and Fafnir's like, "Yeah, you got me." And it's like, I love him. He's a good character.
Also, the
step up
Lions
to a Primarch.
It's proven that the Gilliman is the 5'11" to the Lion's 6 foot because he's a little bit taller, just a little bit taller.
And hey, it's a very relevant book for 40k nowadays, so definitely recommend reading this one if you haven't.
We already know where Andy's going to put this one.
There we go. Next.
No way.
Do we want to say why that we think Scar should be in the top of Boy Gob?
Because Jagged Eye's in it.
Yeah.
It is like a really good book.
It is a great
fantastic.
So quite
the scars are so interesting as a chapter. It's like as a chapter, as a legion, and they're interesting chapters too. But the scars have like their own little civil war. Like it's very interesting, and Jagged Eye can't actually is smart, and he debates in his head. Should I get
when
into
Lehman's
heresy?
like, "Hey, I'm in a war with the Alpha Legion. Do you want to give me a hand?" And he's like, "I'm going to figure out what's going on first before I go in the deep end. Like, chill."
It's nice. Well, if everyone's getting into like reading heresy books, this is one of the few ones where, like, a lot of them are like very separate from like they're kind of their own thing. This is like that, but it's actually like I'd recommend like for beginners as well. Like just straight up go for this book because then you get to enjoy like a really well written Legion, well written storyline part, and it just ties up neatly, and then it goes on to like another novel that's enjoyable as well.
Yeah. Because the thing is, it's like it is involved with the Horus Heresy, even though it's not to a grand scale. It's not like the big laser beam in the sky sort of story, but it checks all the boxes of like you get to understand the culture of the Legion, you get to understand a Primarch in doing so, you get to see the politics of the war as it unfolds, you get some fun action scenes, you get it does everything perfectly.
We can't recommend it enough. I think
it's great. It's great.
We'll have to save it for like a proper video so we can get into it at one point. We'll have to talk about it for hours.
Vengeful Spirit.
Oof. You know what? Because I've read this one not that long ago. I put it in the bottom of A. For one reason, which is just it suffers from the problem of a lot of other stories, which is good parts, but then the sum of all of it is like I felt like the book was a little bit of a slog.
In terms of how
it's the opposite of Scars.
In like how you see, it's a very long book is the problem, but it does have epic moments. So there's an assassination attempt by the guy who just got a model. I've forgotten his name. The Iron Hand, Shadrach Meduson, which is really, really cool. Great Primarch moments, taking a plane out of the sky. You have the Rebellion of House Divine is one of my favorite parts of the heresy. So good. House Divine are a knight household who they deserve their own video, really. They're basically this one member of House Divine who should be in charge, but he's not, and he's been kind of treated shit by his family, and eventually he kind of gets in charge of the house, and then in the end they turn on the Emperor. But when they charge into battle, they see themselves as like these legendary knights, and they attack a monster, but the monster is a loyalist titan, essentially, and it is like pure Horus Heresy. This covers all the events at Molech, which is a very important planet, and Lupercalia, which is a city, and near that is one of the three gateways into chaos, and that was where the Emperor went to do his bargain with the Chaos Gods, and Horus does the same.
And then he came out, he was like,
forever changed.
A lot of work to do.
So lots of epic moments, but it's just very
essentially
long.
It's just the story of how Horus, instead of like he was the War Master, and now he's Champion of Chaos at the end of this book. Really,
yeah, that's fair.
And there's a small bit where Garviel Logan, who we meet in Horus Rising, again, like most people's a lot of people's favorite character, he makes an appearance here where he just gives the middle finger to Horus at the end, and basically goes, "You're wrong, I'm right, bye," and they get sucked out into space. But again, like, I wouldn't read it again. I wouldn't read this book again, but I did it. I was all right with it.
I'd read chapters, but I wouldn't read
I wouldn't. What's the next one? I mean, this is one of the saddest moments in 40k.
Antioch, my boy.
This is. Do you know where we should put this? Top of B, but it's next to Unremembered Empire because essentially it's the continuation of the Unremembered Empire storyline.
I don't think you needed this book and Angels of Caliban. Is the thing.
I'm going to be harsh on that one a bit. This one again, like, there's lots of. I just like this is the bit what makes me like Gilliman so much is the storyline here. Gilliman's just so cool in these novels. There's a cool the actual like Pharos beacon plot device thing. Like I enjoyed it. Again, it's like all right. and then again it has like one of the saddest. It has like a nice like brotherhood relationship in it with the Iron Warrior Dantiok.
It's the unlikely friendship caricature.
Space
And
Marines
then
actually
Gilliman
cry.
is all like, he's like, what's going on? And then his Ultramarines are like, yeah, that Ultramarine, he's been like sobbing, so we gave him a blankie, and he's still sobbing. And then Gilliman's like, Pollux! And then he's like, do your job, but we're gonna like make Dantiok the first ever hero of the Imperium. We're gonna honor him, and I'm gonna help you to like avenge him because Gilliman's a swell dude, right?
Yeah, but again, I wouldn't reread the novel. But
I would.
I do like I enjoy it as like the entire like sort of plot line of Imperium Secundus sort of thing.
Well, so you get to nice little thing at the end. You get to meet the Tyranids, which is very nice.
Yeah.
Bit of a whoopsie.
Thanks, dudes. What's the next one, Andy?
The next one is Path of Heaven. Hold on, let me just put this.
This one is this is Khan
Glorious.
versus Mortarion. This is a
Glorious
great book. Weirdly enough, if you don't read a short story before this book, it kind of doesn't make sense because there's a short story where like Mortarion just basically goes, I'm a psyker. That's horrible. Yeah. But you know what? I'm not going to let the warp control me. I'm going to control it. I'm going to start doing my own experimentation, and then it'll answer to me, and then that doesn't go out so well. I don't even want to spoil this book because it's just so.
It's so good.
Which book is the one where
it's
he
a
goes
bit of a cliche that White Scars have the best books in the Horus Heresy, but I'm not going to diminish that. They're fucking great. They're amazing. Read them. They're amazing.
Which book does he go to Prospero in? How and Andy?
Scars, isn't it?
Scars, yeah.
Yeah. And he meets up with Magnus, and he's like best mates with Magnus, and he's like, gotta be honest, bro, it's a bit cringe going chaos. And he's like, oh, but Dad, it's a bit. He's like, yeah. And then they fight, and then there's like the fact this is like
him and Mortarion
beginning of Scars.
You mean right?
Beginning of Scars, like the White Scars Legion has a ton of units. They're like a fully stocked legion, and by the Path of Heaven, they've been harassing the Emperor's children, the Sons of Horus, and the Death Guard. But because they've been fighting Free Legions, the Free Legions have been working together to be like, oh, we understand their tactics. So by the time of the Path of Heaven, they are like heavily surrounded by Free Legions, and they know all their tricks. And my boy Tagutai Yusugai, he dies, and Shinsha dies, and it makes me sad. I can't talk about this anymore.
All of Jagatai Khan's best friends who were with him before they were like White Scars. At the end of the book, he's like, all my friends are dead. And it's like,
yeah, exactly.
But you got to fight for your father.
That happens in his Siege of Terra book too, doesn't it? All of his buddies just die. And in his Primarch book, all of his buddies died to the orcs at the beginning.
Yeah, but then again, Siege of Terra, Shaban Khan makes the Salamanders look bad by saving a guardsman and a baby, and like running from like beyond the walls, be like, I've got a baby, I must preserve. And then he like takes them to the war, and all the defenders are like, way, White Scars are the best. And I was like, I know, right? By the way, we got a donation from Luty McShooty, veteran of the channel. Thank you very much. $4.99 saying, are we going to get a reading of the Epic of Boingob and discuss the religious reasons why eating a bowl of pure light was the right thing to do?
It's only a sentence of lore.
One day. We'll do a Boingob stream one day, I promise.
Next book, Angels of Caliban. As much as I like what it is in the Imperium trilogy, like sort of thing, this one is the bottom of B.
Yeah, I was going to say bottom of B.
Just as in terms of like, there's a little bit of boringness to it, but there is some cool elements. Like the lion does crunk curs.
Yeah,
but again, like it's just like the whole novel is just basically waiting for that moment, and like it just feels like they're edging.
After the Ceramus Crusade, Age of Darkness, Unremembered Empire, Pharos, and then finally Angels of Caliban to see curs get dealt with is so satisfying because he's just a fucking pain in the ass.
Yeah, but I definitely felt it was more like, oh, thank God it's over. It's over rather than anything else after that, though.
Because the thing is, like, yes, he's an amazing duelist and all that, but it's also like, yeah, your legions are relevant. Who cares?
Well, in Pharos, he's like Kurz is like he finds out that his legions he believes his legion was probably destroyed at Thramas, and I think it was Sagrausa, and he's like, I don't care. Like, glad they're all dead. They're all murderers and shit. He's genuinely happy to find out that they're probably all dead.
How many
Yeah.
times does Kurz fight Primarch, and how many times does he completely
So
win?
he fights the Lion twice. He fights Gilliman. He fights the Lion with Gilliman. He fights Vulkan. He fights
A couple of times.
a couple of times,
Sanguinius.
and he fights
Korax,
Sanguinius,
almost.
and he fights Korax.
Well, I have
so
not. I have not.
He's
read
like
any of
I
those
think
books.
Gilliman's fought every
Dawn,
Primarch
kind
other
of.
than Horus. Dawn, like other than Gilliman, Conrad has fought the most Primarchs as far as I'm aware.
Does he win every time until this one?
No,
Or what happens?
He's pretty good. He
he's
does
really
pretty well.
good. He's like top
So
3
in his fight
Primarchs.
versus so Sanguinius is pretty much the Primarch most commonly said to be the best fighter, although it does change. I think Corvus says it's Angron, but generally Sanguinius is up there. And when Kurz and Sanguinius fight in Pharos, Sanguinius is like, "Oh, none of us will win this
Because they'll both see the future.
Sanguinius is in his pajamas, but exactly as how it says. The reason
But
given
we're
is
both
because
playing chess, but we have an
Yu-Gi-Oh
AI to make
energy.
sure that we know what
Yeah.
the next move is. Yeah, we're cheating.
What's
But the thing is,
sorry.
Kurz also cheats, so that's not fair.
What's the next novel? It's
Praetorian of Dawn.
Oh,
Alfar-
cringe!
Colin,
So
Colin,
cringe.
Alfarius
Boing
dies
up.
in
It
this
is such a
one.
cringe
Colin,
book.
Boing
This
up.
entire book is just the author trying to bring home the point that the Alpha Legion is prideful. That's the entire 400 pages. It's such.
Well, to be honest, I can't even tell because I'd actually read it. I've just thought the other way, in a similar vein, but the opposite way, really, where it's like I kind of felt like it's like, oh my god, how amazing are the Alpha Legion? Like, how amazing is it they planned all of this? How amazing is it they got into the right cracks within the within Terra? How amazing is it that they managed to evade Dawn? How amazing is it that they follow their orders perfectly? It's like, but so what's the point of all this?
And then they throw it away.
Yeah, I just want to have a chat with Dawn.
Yeah.
It's like, why did you do this?
Yeah.
Like,
bottom of
and it has the how when I don't want to move your story, the antagonist is talking to the protagonist and he's trying to sway him to his side, but he's like extremely vague about it and won't say the one thing that he needs to say to convince the protagonist. That's the Alfarius versus Dorn fight. He's like, bro, trust me, bro, join me, bro, it's the right choice. And Dorn says why? And Alfarius is like, well. It's like, what? How could you? Who wrote this? What the heck?
I think whoever the author,
a chainsaw to the skull.
The author, to be fair, did do their best with the Alpha Legion rather than I see the task was going to be done poorly. I think no matter what, just because again, it's like it always has to win. But the Alpha Legion in this, it was like there's certain aspects of it which is like, oh, that's actually kind of enjoyable and neat. But I think it overall,
Dawn picking out Alfarius is a sick moment.
That happens in Legion, I think, not this one.
I think the underlying
Praetorian
idea
Dawn before they fight. When Dawn walks into the room
flashback.
and he sees Alfarius and two guys, he's like,
I kind of like the idea that behind the book it's like, what if you had an unimpeachable morass of smoke screens versus an immovable object, and that the immovable object still wins because that's the thing. It's like, I'm going to attack you from all these all these avenues and blah blah. It's like, yeah, but I'll still nut you, and that's kind of the idea of like.
What is enjoyable about this book though is the Imperial First character called Arcamus. I just liked him as a solid space marine. Like it's one of the things where he's a space marine character who wasn't ego driven or just like regular bloke.
I think
there's two. There's Arcamus and there's Arcamus 2.
Arcamus 2, technically, because then Arcamus 3 is at the end of the book, if you know what I mean. Someone else.
And he becomes the Lord Commander of the Siege of Terra.
But put this one in bottom of C, to be fair.
I think it shows.
It makes must read because it's Death of a Primarch. So, and I will say it is Death of a Primarch.
But it's Death of the Primarch.
The chapter after Alfarius dies is Omegon going, I can feel that Alfarius is dead. So
I felt a disturbance in the Force.
Master of Mankind, Boing Gob.
Boing Gob. So Boing Gob.
Boing Gob. Boing on my... Sorry, Boing on my Gob. Jesus.
What's it there?
No, it's next to Scars. It's next to Scars.
Honestly, I got more out of Betrayer than I did Master. Honestly.
Master of Mankind is literally it's one of the few things that actually gets...
Yeah, because the Emperor. It's just Warhammer porn.
Master of Mankind is like, the Master of Mankind did mastering, and it's like, yeah, obviously. Whereas this had some fun twists. Like this is like, course.
This is
Yeah,
one.
I wanted-
This is the must read of the entire Horus Heresy.
Yeah.
Hell, I feel like we've had
excuse
this conversation before where cool
Excuse me.
people being in a book doesn't make it a good book.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The problem is when they're this cool. When it's
Yeah, I
when
know
it's
what,
that's a
this
fair
cool,
point.
it's so hard. I'm
like
totally with you,
Gurren
Colin.
Lagann, that's a
I
fair
cannot
point.
fairly evaluate this novel. If it was written terribly, I probably wouldn't be able to tell. But I'm pretty sure it isn't. I'm pretty sure it's actually quite good.
It follows mostly the Webway War with the Custodians and the Sisters of
Mhm.
Silence, and a few
And
like
Zephon from the Blood Angel.
and a few like extra mercenary people in it. That is again like the combat in this book is the best combat of the entire Horus Heresy. The bit where they would describe how the Custodians with like their spear, they move so fast, and when they're out of ammo, they ram it into the ground, unleash their dual swords while servitors like reload it, and then they quickly sheath and like pick it up.
Yeah.
The actual
Yeah.
combat in this one is unmatched, and then obviously the Emperor arriving in the Webway is literally like the sun.
And
The
if you get
sun
ganked-
arrives.
It's also I
God.
remember in the epilogue of this book, it's really satisfying because I think it's in the epilogue he put this, where he talks about how he didn't actually like invent any of the Emperor lore for this. What he did is like pull all these different sources of the Emperor's lore and turn it into this novel, and it becomes like the go-to novel for what we know about the Emperor today. And I just thought that is so wonderful.
It's goated, this one, goated. Next one, Andy, what's the what's
the
on
next one
list?
is the Crimson King.
Oh
D.
god, C
Haven't
tier.
Yeah, it's just it's
This is the only novel I thought I couldn't follow at one point. Like I didn't know what was happening.
What a quick fall from grace.
Yeah,
I think
it's a
even
trudge.
Graham McNeil, who's the author of this, who's written a lot of good Warhammer books.
He does a lot of good stuff.
He
10,000 Suns.
even said he really struggled to write this book. This book is essentially the Thousand Sons messing about in the Heresy doing nothing. They're looking for
And
the
Lucius
shards of
being like, I want
Magnus'
to fight
soul.
you. What's his name? And he's like, no. Stop.
One's on a boat, one's in a river. Like honestly, I almost struggled. I just didn't know what was happening at one point. I was like, Like,
So
especially what
this
happened
is
on the planet of
side
sorcerers.
quest.
Yeah, like this is
Yeah.
side quest the book.
You've played Skyrim's main quest 80 times. Go on some side stuff.
Lucius is. This is the book I was going to mention. Lucius the
Yeah.
Eternal is randomly with the Thousand Sons in this book because he's trying to duel one of the Thousand Sons. Be like, hey, bro,
He's the
you want to
duel
duel now?
master, yeah.
Like, wait.
Jeez.
And the duel master is like, I can literally see into the future. That's why I'm so good at dueling. And Lucy's like, do you want to fight yet? And he's like, no.
Donation
Help
by
us.
Leon. Thank you, brother. He says
Yes.
Conrad Kurz
Thank
will
you.
make Fulgrim cry like a little bitch because I don't know, Kurz could win, but I like trigger people like a good Night Lord guy. Thank
Night
you,
Lord
brother.
fans cannot comprehend Conrad Kurz losing a
I
fight
mean-
ever.
I mean, the thing is, I was on Astartes Anonymous, shout out to Astartes Anonymous, and I was having a discussion with Red beforehand about how, like, he was coping so hard that, like, the Dark Angels are just better than the Night Lords. And it's like, I get underdogs, Night Lords, but, like, the Dark Angels are way better. And
Yeah, I
every chance they get, they crunk the Night Lords.
But they killed 2/3 of the Night Lord's Legion, was it?
Yeah.
Something like that?
And it's like,
the
you
majority.
can't
Like,
deny.
bit of a
they-
I mean, when your
Right.
thing is to kill unarmed civilians that are weaker than you, I feel
Exactly.
like you're kind of like,
the runt of the Litter
This-
Legion, and that's saying something considering the word bearers
Can't use my
exist. But it's
special
like, come
power.
on, have
Can use
some
my
standard.
special power
It's also
killing a
not. It's also
baby.
not why I like the Night Lords. I never.
Yeah.
I would never like the Night Lords because of their prowess. It's just they're just very interesting and fantastic characters.
it's,
Oh, and,
everyone likes
um,
Sevatar.
who
Also, you
Can't
could
not like
always say
Sevatar.
Sevatar is like arguably the best swordsman. Beat Sigismund. Just saying.
He's cool.
Totally
Kinda.
legitimate.
We also have another
Indeed,
donation
Hey, a
Yeah.
dub is
Yeah.
a dub.
from main
Yeah.
main even TV. Sorry, I'm
Main event
freaking out
Virgil.
right now. Okay, thank you. Yo, boys, love the show. A question that will derail the conversation. But is there an archetype you believe is missing from 40k factions? Example, Wood Elves. Yeah, Wood Elves in
Colin,
40k would
Colin,
be.
what do you think?
What else would be
Fucking
the Exodites?
Please, I
If
beg
only,
of you.
if only they had more than 2 pages of lore.
I beg of you.
I like someone in my comments in a post I made the other day said they want to see Exodites before Emperor's Children. And if I knew that person in real life, they would have gotten a stern talking to.
But they're right.
Bro, they have 2 pages of lore.
Yeah, well,
Can,
they
can we
give
make?
them
Can
more.
we give the regular factions codexes before we make new ones, please?
No,
Oh my gosh!
we need more
To be
leagues
fair,
of Votan models.
I kind of want to just see a little guys like faction. You know, you got the Watchers in the Dark. You got like the small boys. I just want to see small
Short
boys.
Kings.
Short Kings Legion, please.
I think that was supposed to be the Tau, and then they fell into the mecha trap.
Yeah.
And then they became like blue cow-hooved weeaboos.
The thing is, I know what you mean. I'd quite like. I feel like the setting would work really well if we had 2 more factions. Because, like you say, Colin, the Tau have now become this like alien conglomeration, which is cool within its own right. But like just 2 more smallish Xenos factions that aren't like galaxy-ending threats. They're just kind of like out in the outer rim doing their thing, and they're just cool in their own right.
Donation by Looty McShooty, who says, to piss off the Eldar player in the room,
Right.
do you think that Rush should accidentally save Isha from a certain jar, or would it be funny if Commander Farsight
I beg of
saved
you,
her?
let the Eldar have something. Please let someone else not interrupt their story.
Here's the crux of this, Colin. If the Space Wolves saved Isha, and then they had a collaborative element, would you be mad? Because you're like, Isha, you would. Okay.
Horrible.
Can
Next
we talk
novel,
about the
though.
bugs again?
Yeah. Next novel, Ruinstorm. I like
Cool
this
name.
book a lot.
I like it.
It is good.
Weirdly enough, though,
Again,
it has
it's
the worst cover art.
Again, it's one of those
That's
things
fine.
where, I love how they changed the lion's hair color because they're like, oh, we've just made 3 blonde primos.
He looks like Dog the Bounty Hunter. What's
but-
going on?
I think again, you kind of have to have read Herald of Sanguinius, or you're like, who the fuck is this guy? The Herald of
Ascalon.
Sanguinius that keeps popping up, but no, it's not Ascalon. That's the point. Then
Well, officially he is.
no, it's not Ascalon. Ascalon is not the Herald of Sanguinius. Ascalon crowns the Herald of, makes the Herald of Sanguinius. He's also not Alatron. Before anybody says,
No.
That's just what the wiki says. It's a short story. It's very good. That takes you through. But outside of that, it's very good and takes you a real throwback to the start of the heresies. They go to Davin,
Where Horus was corrupted. There's one bit in it which I think the author got to throw into this book, which is just nowhere else. Like, most people never mention it, but when they arrive at Davin, it's surrounded by a boat. Like, first of all, the scale in this book, just a very quick few things. They meet like a wall. They're all the Ultramarines, Dark Angels, and Blood Angels. They're in their fleet. They're trying to get it to Terra. They meet like a wall of chaos energy and like flesh and stuff, and it's like it looks like it expands the entire galaxy. And they're like, "What the hell is that?" It's just a warp like construct thing to stop them from getting through. So they actually have to land on it and siege a tower, and then they eventually get past that to then something called the graveyard of something. But they arrive at Davin, and it's surrounded by the graveyard, like the bones, like ossified ships, like Eldar ships from the fall. It's surrounded by this is the death and like bones of every civilization that's ever died. And they go like, what the hell is this thing? And it's like ever expanding. And they finally arrive on Davin, and then suddenly the thing just collapses in on itself, and it starts rushing towards Davin. Like, weird stuff in this book that people forget about, but very enjoyable. And then Sanguinius gets dragged into the warp for a little beat up, and then Gilliman and the Lion start attacking architecture to get him out. So that's basically the novel. That's it. It's really enjoyable though. I think
I will say as well, for all you fans of the Sanguinius falling to the Black Rage theory, that unfortunately never came about in the End of the Death. But if you like that theory, this is the book for you. This is the book where Sanguinius actually falls to the Black Rage, and it is a pretty epic scene.
I'm happy where it is on the tier list though, because that's like
I wouldn't say it's the
I can't
best.
put it higher or lower.
It was like it had to be done type thing.
Yeah, but it was. I liked that book a lot.
I like Wolfsbane. I like this one.
Quite
really
an enjoyable
do.
book.
Fantastically written.
it.
Makes no fucking sense. they have to come up with a reason as to why Lehman Russ is not at the Siege of Terra, and this is the book. But in terms of how it's written, and they're going back to Fenris and the stuff with Bjorn and all that kind of thing is genuinely fantastic. Belisarius is cool, great, love it. But like the plot line makes no fucking sense.
I just like the wolves doing something, and they're like, we're gonna put runes and we're gonna put them in this, and then the knights errant get involved. Like any book that the knights errant are involved, I'm like, that's my boys.
And his
Love
copium
'em.
for the knights errant is strong. I haven't read.
It's not
Knights Errant
copium.
yet.
They do a good job. They have the best scenes as far
The
like
bestest of
Garviel
boys.
being like, oh, and Horus like, come on, come back, and he's like, no, Dada, and Garrow with
That's in
Mortarion.
Vengeful
It's
Spirit.
great. Yeah, but it's a
Oh, yeah,
continuation of their story arc. Like Knights Errant are the best. We love them.
They're around. What's the what's the next one, Andy?
The next one is Slaves to Darkness. We're gonna rally at Ulanor and then do a hammer blow.
You know what? Again, this one I think top of B, to be honest, because it's the same problem with cool scenes. I wouldn't reread the book. Kind of low key forgettable.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah,
I'll
basically,
just
again,
leave it
it's
there.
like we're getting towards the end of the heresy, and they're like, "Oh shit, we need to go get Angron and Fulgrim," and that's
and then
novel.
Perturabo somehow like gets Angron in demon form. Is just like, do as you're told.
You know what? It's not better than Fulgrim, so put it below Fulgrim in the list. But I think that's fair there. Next one.
Two to go.
Only two left.
Titan Death.
Wow.
I've actually
Pretty
not
good.
read Titan Death.
Hey,
I've
Titans. Beta Garment
It's
is like it's like the last like big battle before the Siege of Terra, and it's pretty cool. You get Sanguinius doing epic stuff.
Khan's there, I think. Isn't he?
is this the one where he ganks a Titan with his spear?
He does that
A couple
the
times.
main scene he does that is in
Siege of Terra.
Siege of
Echoes
Terra.
of Eternity.
yeah, I want to say Warhawk, but I'm not actually sure on that. Actually, I feel like it might be earlier on.
Where would you put it in the list then? 'Cause I don't know on this one.
Yeah, I don't think that,
telling how strongly you
it's-
feel about it.
it's not filler because I think it is like a pretty important part. Yeah, I would say B tier. I think B tier, maybe
Bottom of B?
above Angels of Caliban.
Right.
Yeah,
Oh, Angels. Oh yeah, there you go. And then
Right.
the last one.
Well, here's the thing: they have Knights Errant in this one, so I'm going to put it in A tier just as a fault.
Gosh.
it's a good book.
It's a
really
great
good
book.
This is weirdly enough. I don't know why they waited this long for this book to be in. Like, why is this the last Siege of Terra book?
I think it's because it's Grey Knights.
You ran out of
So
time.
this book leads into the creation of the Grey Knights, and so
Yeah.
I get what you mean because it's kind of like a Death Guard origin because this is this is one of the big retcons of the heresies. They have Mortarion ascend before the siege, so they can have all four demon primarchs that are specific to one god at the siege, and so they wanted to do that with Garrow's story, which was going to be connected to the Knights Errant story, which is the Grey Knight story, and the Grey Knight story is really big, so they wanted to put that last, which ends up by connection making the Mortarion Ascension story the final book, if that makes sense. But it's kind of odd. Like Titan Death is more like after the Titan Death is over, it's like in the final frontier is Terra. And like
It's a strange book because it's like I understand that they want to have the Grey Knights ready, and it makes sense to have a parallel between here is Garrow, who's like the most important character arguably in the whole Horus Heresy series, and his Legion of Origin. But it is a strange way to end it, shall we say? And Typhus just being like, "I'm going to be sneaky and make
It is
yours
fun though, to be fair.
lovely." It's
Like,
a
all
really
the,
good book, but it's just a strange
For
way
the
to
people who
end
don't like Mortarion, it's because you haven't read this book. And to be fair, when you finish this book, you won't like him, but for different reasons.
yeah,
Because he's a coward.
I did because the book is interspersed, I'm pretty sure, with the with the stuff on Barbarous as Typhus and Mortarion kind of do their rebellion, and so like it made me feel much more about their relationship, because before then I was like, oh, Typhus or Typhon is just like a bastard, but actually he's a bastard, but he is in such a way I actually started to feel for Mortarion a bit, which is kind of interesting. And I will say as well, this book is one of those books where it's not epic like Master of Mankind is epic, but it's epic in like minor, smallish ways. Like you have Sisters of Silence talking, and you find out why Malkador is actually pretty fucking evil, and all these kind of things that are like things that really stick with you, if that makes sense. But it's not like Sanguinius taking out Titan.
I'm pretty happy with the list though. If that's my God, what have I done? Like my life has led to this moment. So, and I'm very glad.
I was worried we were going to have too much in
Poor
S tier, so
Colin
that's
through
really
that.
interesting.
Colin, do you think you
Well,
actually?
I love Talon.
Yes.
I'll ask Colin.
Fuck you, Bravo.
Do you think
That's
out of
so
all that
good.
list there, Colin, like, would you pick? Is there any like book you'd pick probably like to actually go into? Like, if
I
you
would-
obviously tiered them there.
I would probably pick No Fear.
Oh, that's a good.
Here's a
one,
classic.
yeah.
I like me Gilliman, like that.
Yeah, it's good. It's a good book.
Mechanicum is probably second place because it's mostly about the Mechanicum, and I don't need to do too much reading about Space Marines being Space Marines. And I guess for a
that's good,
third,
Yeah.
I'd probably pick I don't even remember the name of it. The one with Corvette chorus flying towards the cover, looking all broody.
Deliverance Lost.
Not even because
Wow.
I think it's a good book. I just think it's like a rite of passage. You need to be disappointed by the Raven Guard at least once.
Yeah, they're pretty. Man, I wish my Thousand Sons novels were better.
Probably Talorn too, but not again.
Yeah,
Oh.
I'd
Go
be
ahead.
interested to see it actually without the anthologies in it, because like they are just anthologies, and whenever you get to one of them in the Heresy, you do just go, oh, it's an anthology. Just go through it, because this is the thing. It was we said it like a couple of times. There are like random anthologies that you're like, oh, this is actually really important. Like you're like, oh, if you don't read the anthologies, you'll be like, sorry, why is Kurz with the lion? Like, why are these exactly? So you do kind of have to read them, but they're not.
Has everyone
things you look
seen
forward
that
to.
tier list thing where it shows you? It's the spread document of how to read the Horus Heresy in
I
particular
have.
order. The massive like spreadsheet where it
Yeah,
shows you like
I've
if you want
seen
to
that.
follow a faction. Yeah, that's a problem. But
It's still not as bad as Marathon Lore.
Yeah.
can't even handle it. Oh my God. I think that, to be fair, that was a pretty long one. To be fair, though, I don't know if we've got. Oh, was it Siege of Terror? We've
only got Siege of Terror. It's like
the
10.
finish on Siege
Oh,
of Terror
man.
here.
I've read one of these
Oh,
books.
Colin.
We were so close.
It's only a little
So
bit.
close.
It's fine.
The first three, the Solo War I can remember. The second, 2 and 3 blend together a little bit for me. I'll be real with you.
All right.
Yeah.
D. There you go.
I remember
Where's Solar War go?
Perturabo does his great play, which is to have a fucking idiot command the Trade Forces.
Owned.
What with the Sons of Selenar? That one can go and see.
Yeah, it's not bad.
But
But-
why is it a Siege of Terror novel?
Yeah.
Why are you here?
Saturnine Boingob. Just again, it's just
Yeah.
fucking porn. It's so like the kill teams, Dawn versus Fulgrim, just
Trenches,
Dark Angels
tunnels.
show up. Spoilers. It's just so good.
This is very much like
Oh, we got
you.
2 donations.
Oh, thank you.
So we got Centurion Crunch for $19.99 saying, Ed, back on Lorecrimes. Today is indeed a food day. Andy, I think it would be poetic if you appeared as a VTuber instead of wearing the mask on
Wow, that's
stream.
actually quite funny.
How dare the... Whoa. Oh, and now it's been retracted. Fair enough. Jeremy Golden for £5 has said, kind of off topic, but would you guys ever do a painting contest between you? Maybe
I think we
one
talked about
day.
that like in the
Yeah.
earliest days of Lorecrimes ideas.
Yeah. We'll see.
I think
Sky's
we have
the
to.
limit.
To be fair, do we get to use all the tools we have? Because I have an airbrush.
No, it'd be brush and paint for
Brush
everybody.
only.
I think. Yeah.
Keep it raw.
It's all right, Howard, but yeah, I glazed that.
Yeah.
Lots of thin coats.
It's like, oh, and here's what I made earlier. So,
Yeah.
what was
That's
the next
Art
novel?
Attack.
Fury of Magnus. I actually
B.
quite like this one. Like B.
Yeah, it redeemed Magnus a lot in my eyes.
Did it?
Good dialogue
this
in this
novel.
one.
I like Primarchs that love their sons. I'm just a sucker for it.
Is that one more?
Oh, and
Scroll down to the
Centurion
end.
Crunch donated
Quite
another $19.99
Lower than
saying,
Wrath
surely
the Fury of Magnus. whichever
typos.
one it's
Love you
called.
Love
guys.
you
Yay,
too.
thank you,
Thank you, brother.
Centurion. Thank you very much.
Is that what's the next one, Andy? Come on,
Mortis.
Mortis. I'd say lower than
C.
Magnus.
C, top of C.
Yeah. Warhawk.
Boingob.
Yeah.
Boingob.
This is the only one I
What?
read,
What's
and
up
it
there?
was freaking awesome.
Best,
It was
best.
amazing.
And you know why it's the best, Eli? Because it's got Jagatai and the Wise
Yes,
Scars
it
in
does,
It
and he
makes
has some.
sense.
I would say
incredible
the
quotes in
next
it.
5, I'd go all Boingob. They're just, I couldn't say not.
You know what?
They're just epic.
Garrow one. I haven't read it yet, so I don't know.
Oh, I love Garrow.
I
It's
know,
so
but
good.
Andy's.
I was
Andy's
worried that I wouldn't.
rose-tinted
simp.
glasses.
But
I'm
I'm not
with
saying
Andy.
that just for saying that. I'm like, honestly, it's such a nice resolution where it's like there's
So true.
there's no BS power level stuff. It is a bit indulgent, but
I
at
just
the
don't
same
like
time,
the whole
it's just fun.
pull yourself down the blade thing, because that happens in those top 2 novels up there. That happens exactly
Yeah.
the same
But
thing.
Garrow
in those
doesn't
novels.
kill Mortarion. He just has a dignified death, and that's good.
And I think that as well, it's how Garrow's story is built into this
Yeah.
death really nicely. Like,
Yeah.
it's a very
Damn
very
good death.
beautiful ending. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's that whole thing of like honor and valor and not being a silly Billy.
Thank you, Liam Culling Nain, who says Colin is stuck in 30k like Godric is stuck in AOS.
Pretty much.
Colin's we'll have revenge in the next one. So
All right,
Colin can.
Echoes of Eternity. I'll get S. All right, let's go S.
Yeah.
That's the lowest I can
Can
do.
I say End of the Death Volume 2? End of the Death Volume 2, I feel maybe.
May I say from this
Why?
point on,
I've seen this a couple of times. Why?
I didn't enjoy it.
I
I was
just because the book's long.
I will say
I did feel like a bit of a slog.
I've not listened.
How
or
about
read any of these
okay?
three
With
yet, so.
how can you have the Dark King storyline and be reading through that novel and be like, this is a slog.
I've still
This
put it in S tier.
this
I
is
just think the
slog.
other two are like
Yeah.
the other two are cream of the crop. I would
actually say End of the Death 3 was the worst of the 3 in terms of like a novel. But
it's not deep.
Oh no, sorry, it's still Boingob, but it's just the worst of the Boingobs.
What it is, I was like, I did have a little bit of disappointment in terms of it's like someone saying I got everything that I wanted, but I also you know, like I ordered a dessert, I got exactly what I wanted from the order, but I was like, could they like maybe a bit of a sprinkle or something else on it? That's just a personal thing. I feel like everything in the End of the Death Volume 3 was like it happened exactly as I thought it was going to happen, and I did want a
pretty
little
much.
twist.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. And I
siege is
respect Dan
over.
Abnett a lot for that. Like, I totally respect him not doing something just stupid for the sake of it. But I get what you're saying. It was kind of like
he started. He can stop it. What about End and Death 2?
And I would say weirdly, with the End and Death 3, right? So you know, I say Garrow's storyline kind of it all builds really nicely into his death.
Yeah,
Old person's storyline. Like, he has a storyline that takes him to that place, but it's not very natural, I would find. I would say, so for example, his attitude towards the Emperor just changes very quickly. And he leaves in End of Death Volume 2, then turns around and comes back. And it's like, this is very odd. It's a bit disjointed. It's almost like they'd planned out maybe a different plot line and then moved things around.
I did think perhaps they weren't planning to have it as 3 books. Like this tier list, it just went like for Colin, it went on too long.
I would put money that it was supposed to be 2 at most, and GW went like, yes, but we're finishing the Horus Heresy. With this money train cannot end yet.
But are we? Yeah. We're not going to conclude it.
Maybe Dan Abnett was probably like, I've got to, you know what I mean? Like, he has to tie up 60 books worth of.
To be fair, can we give a shout out to Dan Abnett for not only like starting the series, but also like having like millions of people with bated breath waiting on, hey, I know it's been 40 years of this. Finish. Like, that's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a
big ass.
Sure. I think that as well.
One last thing, which is kind of, I guess, like the end, really the end of this whole thing is like, I don't know how everyone's going to feel about this, which is the fact that it's setting up a plot line that is now going to be like, you know what I mean? Like the whole book is set up a plot line in the Beckwer novels as well. Like, so it's kind of this end of the Siege of Terror. It set up a 40k timeline plot, which is like, oh, so now I have to like, I definitely felt like I wanted a bit more of like it's over, we did it, boys, and then no, you know, the scattering or whatever can happen. It's fine. but just I wish it was a bit more. It's over. I don't like because again, 40K got a bit of a problem of like, but the setting's always happening. You know what I mean? Like, but it's not over yet. So,
well, I mean, all right. To be fair on that one, and I'm going to take a rare stance to defend the Horus Heresy. This is a prequel. There's 10,000 years more in the future.
Yeah.
Stuff kind of needs to still be happening because if it ended cleanly, you'd be like, well, so where's 40K come into this?
I get what you're talking there from, Colin, because I also think we're not used to Games Workshop putting story at the forefront of these settings, outside of just making a MacGuffin and then being like, this could come up in the future. But actually, these books are the end of the volume 3 with Lillian Chase. With Constantine Valdor's attitude change, with Abaddon, with Annuncia, the amount of links between that book and Beckwith, it is like fucking thought out. He has clearly planned this down well, and that is actually impressive.
And not to be funny, like what other fandom has the ability to say, "Oh, we only got 10 books this year"? Like, we're really spoiled as far as a fandom goes, and like there are so many talented authors who work with the Black Library and Games Workshop, and obviously when the highs are highs and the lows are lows, but like there's some really good quality stuff.
I also think that people are way too hard. Like, I think when the reason the end of Death 2, people are so harsh on it. Like, I think people are just harsh on books because the nature of them is something. So it's the same with like Fall of Cadia. There are just a lot of characters in that book, and there's a lot that has to happen in the novel. It's just a lot. It is a lot to get to, but like, given that's an immovable object, it is phenomenally well done. And like, the actual. The things that you could like really cut out is actually not a lot. If any book was going to be like, oh, could we actually get a little bit more? I would say, give me a little bit more. The reason I would say 3 is a little bit worse is because like the way he moves so quickly after Horus Falls, like, was pretty shocking to me, and like that was a bit surprising. But like generally, I was like, give me more. Like, give me more.
I do it. My complaints are minor because it's still like no other franchise quite hits as hard as like that. And like someone who has read, I don't read every single like Horus Heresy book or like novel, you know what I mean? But just like from Horus Rising to now, holy, you know what I mean? It's like has anyone here read anything from like Brandon Sanderson, like Stormlight Archive? Man, like the Horus Heresy has the same vibe as that author, where it's like, man, I want to see my family and like see my kids, but the lore and the novels being dropped right now are just too good. Yeah, but I think that's a good place to like sort of. Is everyone happy with like that tier list? Is everyone happy with the conclusion there? I think we've run nearly 2.5 hours of poor Horus Heresy lore.
Wow.
Yeah, we were talking.
It's been built like 4 sisters. What the hell?
only have 2 final remarks.
Poor Colin, who has suffered.
The Fulgrim book should have been an S tier.
Thank you.
Because it sets up Eldrad's most important characteristic, which is he gets a whole lot of Eldar killed, goes home to Oathway, and gaslights everyone into thinking this was the correct choice of action.
He shows up a little bit in the End of Death volumes. So.
And other than that, I like to make fun of it, but I don't think that the Horus Heresy, I don't think, is bad. Because if it was bad, we got 60 fucking books out of it.
Yeah. I mean, and to be honest, it is the thing. To this day, there's a big difference between Age of Sigmar and 40K. Colin, you might have noticed. And in terms of popularity, Age of Sigmar is still very far from catching up.
Yeah.
This is the difference. Is the Horus Heresy is genuinely like one of the things I say about 40K is that it has. I'm doing a video on Lee 2 at the moment. And one of the things I say about 40K is it has no right to be as good as it is. Like, Lee 2 is like a joke. It's just a ridiculous joke where, like, the first ever Space Marine made was called LE2. And Dan Abnett went, lol, I'll make that a character. And it's genuinely an epically important character that does so much. And it's just kind of like, how is this so good? This makes no sense. Like, if you look at the naming of 40k, the naming is so all over the place. There are all like 5 books called Slaves to Darkness. It's just crazy. But like,
one of them is a fantasy book.
Yeah, it's genuinely great. It's so amazing that
Are you telling me you don't like
we are spoiled.
your iron hands leading your iron hands who have iron hands?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I think that extends like the Horus Heresy itself too. Like, isn't I'm pretty sure that Horus Heresy as a concept only exists because early in GW's history they wanted to sell boxes, but they only had Space Marine sculpts. So they were like, well, why are we selling a kit that's
Make
one
the
arm?
best of a bad situation.
Yeah.
You're like,
There was
well,
Civil
okay,
War.
Civil War. What can we do with this?
Yeah.
And then what they can do with this is 80 books.
I have to say though, thank you so much everyone who was along with us on that journey. To be fair, if you made it again, we should always say this at the beginning, but please like it. Like
Eli, join me.
Thank you everyone who was donating throughout the stream. We really appreciate that. And well, hopefully Colin gets to pick the next one because we put him through that.
Suffer enough.
For it's going to be Xenos tier lists, and we'll probably enjoy that as well. Again, thank you so much for listening and watching. Thank you, Ed, for
thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. I wouldn't dominate too much or anything like that.
No,
One final, vastly important question: what's your favorite zombies map?
Ed.
I don't play COD very much. Sorry. I was something I played at like friends' houses. I got big into Warzone over lockdown, but that was it. Sorry.
It kept getting worse.
Have you done that as a tier list?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so we had to skip.
More important question.
That
More
was
important
an OG
question.
tier list.
Ed, what's your favorite epic rap battle
Yeah, that's the lingering
Epic rap battles
of history?
Yeah. Have you seen those?
I haven't watched them. I did watch those for like years ago. They're very old.
The new
now.
ones
They're
are kind of
going.
trash, but the old ones
Yeah,
are
they're
great.
still going.
They're still going. They're still
My
good.
God. How many have they done?
Over 50. But the new ones, I gotta be honest, guys, the new ones are kind of mid. But like the older ones with like Weird Al Yankovic and Key and Peele, S tier. And the new ones, I saw the Henry Ford versus Karl Marx, and I was like, very clever lyrics, but the beat's mid. The beat counts. The beat is important. If the beat sucks, it doesn't matter how clever you are. I'll be honest.
Should we do one for 40k at some point? That could be really fun.
Epic rap battle.
I was saying, I had a vision of a Lorecrimes epic rap battle.
Crimes of history.
God, we probably can't steal the format.
Perfect.
With that being said, though, thank you again so much, Ed, for joining us. And
Thank you.
if you made this far, thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Take
Love
care.
you. Oh, man.